Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Neese.
we're going to need one moment. We have an issue with it going on to YouTube. If you'll just give us a minute, we'll get that squared away and then we can get started.
Do we have all the supervisors connected?
One supervisor is not connected at this time, and she is on her way here to the township building. We're going to set her up in another room so that she can participate.
Okay.
It's telling me that it's timed out too. Can we, if we record it, can we put it up tomorrow on YouTube? In the interest of time, are we recording, Rich? Yeah, we are. We are recording the meeting. We're having trouble getting it to go out to YouTube. Hopefully we can post it to YouTube tomorrow, and we will work doing that. Not exactly sure what the issue is, but the timing out, and we will watch that. If it's all right with you, Mr. Chairman, I will go ahead and read the public comment instructions for the meeting.
Yes, please.
We take again, we're doing this meeting virtually, and we're taking public comment one of four ways. If the first way is as an attendee at the meeting, and you can virtually raise your hand, and that is an option that you have as an attendee, and you can raise your hand, and during the public comment time, we will recognize you and allow you to make comment. I would make note that we've been doing public comment differently during virtual meetings. For those of you who are new, we're doing public comment at the beginning of the meeting related to the items on the agenda versus after each different item. I do believe, however, and Mr. Chairman, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if there is any public comment that you're going to take tonight related to the agreement, that you will do that at the time of the agreement. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes. So just wanted to make sure everybody's aware of that. But for other items on the agenda, we're taking public comment at the beginning of the meeting. And then for that are not on the agenda, they can be taken. We'll take public comment at the end of the meeting again. If you are, so you can make public comment as an attendee by raising your hand. If for some reason that you are either not recognized by us or you're having trouble, you can send public comment to publiccomment@newtowntownship.org. Again, that's public comment, all one word, @newtowntownship, also one word, .org. And you can do that. Make sure you include your name and your address, if that's how you want us to just read it. If you're on a phone and you want to make public comment and are having trouble with the raise your hand function, if you send your phone that you have used to call into the meeting with, give us that phone number, we will recognize you and allow you to speak. Again, it's at publiccomment@newtowntownship.org. Again, that's all as one word for public comment, and at newtowntownship.org is Newtown Township is one word. The third way that you can make public comment is actually just to send your public comment to publiccomment@newtowntownship.org. Again, we ask that you include your name and address, and they must be included just like you were to be speaking to the public and to the board. And then finally, we allow for public comment to be made at the drop box that's outside. We've been using the library drop box up at this point, and if you wish to make public comment, you could have dropped it off. We have checked we've checked the drop box for public comment within the last 15 minutes. There was no public comment in the drop box. We will check public comment at the email during the meeting, but we do not check the box again during the meeting. Those are the instructions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Neese. At this time, I would like to call the meeting to order. Mr. Neese, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Nawn.
Present.
Mr. Partridge.
Here.
Ms. Roberts Lightcap. She is in the building. I know she's trying to get on line right now. Mr. Russo.
Here.
Mr. Altieri.
Here.
Your engineer, solicitor, and manager are here.
Thank you, Mr. Neese. You'll let us know when Ms. Roberts Lightcat gets on?
I will.
Okay, thank you. The board was in executive session prior to this meeting to discuss two legal matters. At this time, I'd like to have a moment of silence, if I may. Again, just as we did at our last meeting, I'd like us all to think about and pray for, I'll call it peace. Let's all remember that this is Newtown Township. We treat everybody equally, no matter what race, creed, color, religion they are. We're also very proud of our police, our first responders, our fire workers, all those who are on the front lines in the medical and health professions. Again, we're all one big community. We're all one big happy place. And I want to make sure that everyone thinks about that and keeps that in their prayers. And, let's see if we can be an example to the rest of the community at large as to how to function in today's society. So please bow your head. All right. With that being said, we have before us this evening's agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda or consideration of any changes, additions, deletions.
So
Make
moved.
a motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second it.
Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve this evening's agenda. Any further questions from members of the board on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. At this time,
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but Ms. Roberts Lightcap is here now.
Fantastic. Excellent.
I apologize. Thank you.
No worries. Understand, we all understand technological issues. And I'm an engineer and I have technology problems. So at this time, I'll entertain any public comment for agenda items only, as noted on the agenda. If anybody has any public comment for any agenda items other than the settlement agreement discussion later on the agenda, please indicate through one of the means there, raise your hand, whatever the case may be. And Mr. Neese will let us know if anybody does.
I know we have at least one that's come in through the public comment mailbox while we were getting ready to meet. And if I can, I'll go ahead and read that into the record for you.
Yes, please.
It is from Miss Patty Wilson at 4111 Battles Lane. She has 3 comments that are relatively short. I'll read each one. It is unclear whether Rafferty is asking for a waiver or a variance. In fact, Mr. Rafferty requires a variance for something he did without a permit or a variant. If in fact Mr. Rafferty requires a variance for something he did without a permit or a variance, I believe, like all other residents, he should be asked to make an application to zoning. Number 2, I believe that taking on more debt for the fire truck at this time regardless of the interest rates, which will likely remain low for quite a while, is not responsible. This is not a comment on to deny the purchase. As in the last meeting, I think that seeking grants as well as ensuring that this does not ultimately ensure that the taxes are increased again next year is the way to go. Mr. Neese suggested at the last meeting that this would be an increase to the budget of at least $125,000 per year. Right now, he also, I believe, suggested that we will have a budget shortfall. Number three, the DePaton settlement agreement, in my view, is total giveaway to this developer. Not only do you allow the road that will negative impact residents, but you are allowing smaller lots than is required for zoning for R1 zoning. I believe this settlement should be denied.
Thank you, Mr. Neeson. Thank you, Ms. Wilson. I also showed three hands listed here. The first one I see is Michael Mahalo. I'm assuming that's Cindy Mahalo. If you want to let that person speak, that's fine.
Are you doing that?
Hello, you're live.
If this is Cindy Mahalo, you should be unmuted and ready to speak.
Yep. They seem to be muted again.
I think oh, there we go.
Oh, she's unmuted. Michael Mahalo, can you hear us? Can you speak? Looks like they put their hand down. Why don't we move on to the next one? And that's a Fred Stratman.
There we go.
Try it again.
Hi, this is Fred and Francie Stratman. Can you hear me?
We can. Can you please give us your address, please?
3840 Gradyville Road.
Okay.
We have a lot of comments. I know that there are over 50 public comments regarding
Well,
the.
hang on, let me stop you for a minute. We're not taking comments on the settlement agreement right now. We're going to do that when we get to that part of the agenda.
Okay, I understood that you had said that the comments for the agenda items had to come before.
Yes,
Got it.
with the exception of the settlement agreement that for the developer that we're talking about later on the agenda.
Oh, okay. So the woman, the resident that just made the comment before, that was, I guess, about Rafferty. Okay, I'll wait till later then. Thank you. Sorry.
I'm still seeing Mahalo. Do you want to try to see if they can talk again, Steve?
I've just unmuted.
Yeah, I can see they're unmuted. Hello? All right. It looks like they're talking, but I can't hear anything. I don't know if anybody else can.
I can't hear them.
Nope.
All right, we're gonna have to move on that one. I do have a hand from a Martha McIlvain that's showing. Steve, if you could unmute Ms. McIlvain.
Okay.
Should be
Oh, is
unmuted
this
now.
Martha McIlvain?
Yes, this is her husband, Joe.
Okay, Joe, can you give me your address, please?
106 Stony Brook Boulevard.
Okay.
We had a meeting back in, I don't know, December, maybe January, about the dynamiting of our street and the problems it caused to the road surface. And when we were there at the meeting, we were told that come springtime, that road of Stony Brook that had been affected negatively would be repaved. We're now in the summer and nothing has happened. what's the deal?
It is part of our road program, and it will be done as we progress along in the road program. They just haven't gotten to it yet.
Well, you told us the spring. This is the summer already.
It's the summer as of Saturday, so they haven't gotten to it. They are going to, it is part of the road program. It will be done.
When?
I don't know exactly what their schedule is right now. Mr. Neese, do you have an idea what their schedule is?
They are working through the roadways right now. I would believe it's probably going to be more to the middle of the summer by the time they get that far. They're working. If you will look outside, you probably see some inlets that have been delivered to the area. They are working on replacing and rebuilding the inlets along there, preparing for the eventual repaving.
Okay.
And can I also just add too, that for Mr. McElveen, you can, all this information in terms of the timeline gets updated weekly. Our director of operations, or excuse me, our roadmaster, director of public works, George Sharretts, puts this information weekly up on the township website under the municipal projects tab. So he updates that weekly, and you can find that timeline as the project continues to progress.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Altieri. I got one other hand here that is identified on my screen as Springton Point. Perhaps you can give them the floor, Mr. Neese, and see if we can figure out who they are.
I've just unmuted them.
Okay. Springton Point, you're online.
We are residents of Springton Point Estates.
Okay, hold on a second. I need to know who the residents are and what your addresses are.
My name's Liz Ann McGowan Kilmeyer, and I live at 8 Maplewood Drive.
Okay. Go ahead.
My question was actually the same as the last gentleman's, because I'm really upset about how bad that road is and how long it has been that bad.
Thank you for your comment. It's going to be fixed, as you heard, sometime this year as part of our road program.
Okay, and how about any other road work that's planned? Would that also be indicated on the website?
Yes, it is. It is indicated on the website, as Mr. Altieri pointed out. Mr. Sharretts updates that on a weekly basis that shows which roads are going to be done and when they're scheduled to be done.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And we had trouble getting on the Zoom initially, so we're a little bit delayed coming in. Have you gotten to the discussion about the proposed development across Gradyville Road yet?
No, we are only on item 7 of the agenda. We haven't even gotten to the minute from the last meeting yet.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Mr. Neese, I believe we now have Cindy Mahalo online here. Maybe we can take her comments.
Hi, this is Cindy.
Hello, Cindy. How are you?
I'm good. I'm sorry for the inconvenience earlier, and I appreciate you.
No worries. Oh, nope, she's muted again.
Wait a second. It may have.
Hello?
Oh,
Yeah.
there we are. You're back.
There we are.
Oh, did you lose me?
We did.
Apparently so, yes.
Okay. I just wondered if now is the time to make a statement about the tree ordinance that is later on the agenda.
Certainly.
Okay. Well, as a member of the Environmental Advisory Commission, I would like to speak on behalf of the tree ordinance. I know that there might be some concerns about it, and the board in its previous deliberations looked at various aspects of hazard trees and hazard tree removal. And I just want to point out that that really is one very small part of the ordinance, and I believe it's actually been removed. The primary intent of this ordinance is to broadly ensure a healthy tree canopy for the entire community. We have lost so many trees over the years due to emerald ash borer, the severe weather we're having, development. things like that, and just willful removal by residents, that our tree canopy has really diminished, and this does threaten not only the local economy in terms of property values, but it threatens human health through increased, air pollution. Trees do remove pollutants from the air, they clean our water. So it really is in the best interest of the entire community to keep a strong, vibrant tree canopy. And that is the intent of this ordinance, to do so, to encourage people to not only protect trees, but to kind of provide a braking mechanism on the voluntary removal of an excessive number of healthy trees. So I just urge you to keep that in mind when you consider it. And tree planting is going to be an integral part of achieving our MS4 requirements. So it's in the best interest of the town to not only be planting trees, but encourage residents to keep their trees. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe that's all the public comment we have right now. So without further ado, I'm going to move on the agenda here. Item number 8. This is minutes. Consider approving the minutes from our June 8th, 2020 meeting. I'll entertain a motion to approve or consideration of any changes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the June 8th, 2020 meeting
As written.
as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to approve the minutes from our June 8th, 2020 meeting as written. Any further discussion from members of the board on this item? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda, we have a presentation on the 2019 audit. Mr. Neese.
Yes, I'm going to, where'd he go? Oh, there he is. He's already up. Mr. Herr is with us tonight. He is with Mally, who did our audit. This is their second year, and I'm going to let him explain where we are. And I would say that it's been reviewed by the auditors, or your elected auditors. It is now being presented to you.
All right, thanks. Good evening, everybody. You can hear me okay? Good. My name is Chris Herr. I'm a partner with Maley LLP. We are the independent auditors for the township. Very happy to be here presenting to you the 2019 financial statement. We started the process back in March, and we just issued the final reports last week. So about a 3-month turnaround, which in this environment right now is pretty good. I know you have quite the agenda tonight, so I'm going to try to keep it brief. I just have a few highlights, and then I'll be happy to field any questions you have. As far as the report goes, the one thing I always try to point out is our opinion on the report. It is an unmodified or clean opinion, sometimes it's referred to. That is the best opinion that you can have. What that means is that your financials are in accordance with GAAP. That's generally accepted accounting principles. You're in compliance with all GASB pronouncements. That's Governmental Accounting Standards Board pronouncements. There was no scope limitations. We come into the audit with a very lengthy wish list of everything from bank statements to W-2s to individual invoices that we want to see as part of your audit. And we received everything that we requested as part of the audit. The opinion does have one thing that I wanted to point out. There is an emphasis of matter section in the opinion, and that's just where we will emphasize anything that we think is important to a reader. There was 2 issues this year that are in there. One is we did implement a new GASB 84 for fiduciary activities. That didn't have too much of an impact on the overall financial statement. It really just resulted in some additional disclosures in footnote A regarding the pension plans, but again, nothing significant. The bigger emphasis of matter we have in there is we refer to a subsequent event footnote that we put in your financial statement this year. I believe it's footnote N of the report. It's the last footnote. We do have some disclosure there related to COVID-19. That is standard. I don't think any financial statements in the country are being issued right now for a government, for-profit, nonprofit, anybody without some sort of subsequent event related to COVID-19, because it is affecting everybody. It's a very general footnote. It basically says that there's been some economic impact from the COVID-19. You know, if we were to look at certain investments at this point, they probably lost some value from 12/31 related to market fluctuations. We don't put a dollar figure on any of that. The footnote just says, hey, there is this event happening and it could have an impact on your financials, even though it's not measurable at this time. Beyond that, there's really only two things I kind of wanted to touch on in the financial statement. One being the general fund income statement. If you're looking at the statement, it's on page 24. I just wanted to point out the general fund had a couple significant swings in activity this year compared to last year. Under revenue, license and permit revenue is up about $2.5 million. That's related to an increase in building, electrical, and HVAC permits around the Ellis Preserve property. So there was a $2.5 million increase this year there. Expenses were actually remarkably flat compared to last year, but down under other financing sources and uses, transfers out, the general fund will oftentimes transfer money out to capital reserve fund. Last year, the general fund transferred out about $3.5 million. This year, the transfer out was lower to about $2 million. So between a $2.5 million increase in the permit revenues and a $1.5 million decrease in the transfers out of the general fund, that works out to about a $4 million swing. So last year, the general fund had about a $1.8 million loss in operation, and this year it swung the other way to be about a $2 million increase in operation. So I wanted to point that out. That's probably the biggest number swing in the financial statement. The other thing that I wanted to mention was we did last year have a significant deficiency, a finding related to capital assets. Last year being our first year on the audit, one of the things we did is we obtained the capital asset listing from the township through a asset appraisal company that was being used to track the capital assets of the township. And we compared that to the capital asset records that agreed to last year's financial statement. And there were some significant differences there in the calculations. And it took quite a bit of time to sort of figure it out with the help of the finance department there. So we did issue a finding related to that issue. The finance manager in the past year, we had kind of talked between the audits, and he made a project out of sort of bringing the capital asset reporting in-house. And as a result of that, we got capital asset records for our 2019 audit that were spotless. I mean, they tied right into last year, had the perfect roll forward right into this year. So we did eliminate that finding through the effort of your business office in 2019. So I did want to point that out as well. Beyond that, I'd be happy to field any questions if you have any on the audit or anything else.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Herr regarding the audit? I don't see any. I'll add the comment, well done, Mr. Neese. It seems like we've got a very clean audit again, and appreciate your work and Rich's work in making sure you keep us on the straight and narrow when it comes to the finances.
A lot of that credit goes to Rich. He took a major project on with making sure our assets got lined up, and keeping on top of everything. So we're very thankful for that.
Well done, Rich. Well done. There's no action we have to take on this, correct?
We should approve it, and so that and we'll go ahead and publicize it then on the website afterwards. But we always have you take action on accepting the audit and approving it and moving it forward.
Would any board member like to offer a motion to accept the audit as written?
Yeah, I'll make that motion, John. So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to accept the audit as prepared. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Herr.
Thank you.
Hey,
Everybody have a good night.
Thank you. Yeah, John, that's 17.1, so covered already.
Yes.
We had it on there.
Okay. Well, good then. We're done with that.
Yep.
Just such a long agenda. Who knows, you know? All right, let me see if I can get straight here again. Yeah, we'll get that done. All right, next we have reports. The first one is our chief. We have a report from our police chief. I don't see him if he's on or not, but if he's on and he has anything to add, great. Raise your hand. If not, we will move on. I trust everyone's had a chance to review the police report. Next on the agenda is a report from our fire department. Again, if I believe I saw Chief Everlof on. If he has anything to add, great. If not, we will move on. Yes, Mr. Neese.
Yeah, his hand is raised.
Well, let's hear from Mr. Everlof then.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, just want to give you a heads up. So yesterday we had a significant fire in town on Tanglewood Lane and Bishop Hollow Road. I just want to applaud our crews, our mutual aid assistance from Broomall, Rose Tree, Media Fire Company, Garrett Drexel Hill was there as our rapid intervention team, Berwyn Fire Company, Marple EMS, Riddle EMS. Crews did an outstanding job. The fire started as a tractor in the garage, spread to a vehicle, and then quickly engulfed the garage area, and it had some minor extension into the kitchen and the first floor and the second floor. But crews did a great job keeping the fire to pretty much in check. There was significant damage, but the homeowner will be able to recover many of their belongings. So I just want to give a shout out to our crews who did a really great job in a rather hot environment yesterday. I think it was about 90 degrees with about 50% relative humidity during the time of the call. So just wanted to let you folks know about that.
Thank you, Doug.
You're welcome.
Anybody have any questions for Chief Everlof while he's on the line?
I don't have a question, but I'm going to address something that he has in his report, and I think it's pretty fitting considering what we're going to vote on at the end of the night regarding the fire truck. So just again to highlight that only 57% of the residents in Newtown Township and only 10% of the businesses support the fire company every year through their fund drive. They have just sent out their second round of fund drive notices. So while we know that they'll be there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I think it's important for us to be there for them as well as residents. Again, since we will be voting on this this fire truck later on in the agenda, our fire department doesn't run, they don't respond to calls on flying carpets that are funded by Rainbows and Sunshine. They're funded by, it's a purely volunteer organization. So anything we can do to help them out, I think is important to do. And again, only 57% of residents help out in that fund drive and only 10% of businesses. So please, if you can, donate to the local fully volunteer fire department.
Well said, Mr. Altieri. And again, just to reinforce, especially with our residents, understand that the township does fund some of the fire company, but what we fund is a very small percentage of their operations. They are essentially self-funded, and that is through your donations and the like to the fire company. So I would encourage everyone to make sure that you are contributing to the fire company, because fire service is not free. It does come with a cost. So well said, Mr. Altieri. Thank you very much.
Can the chief tell us when he's going to be moving into the new firehouse?
I can. So currently our general contractor is working on a punch list. There's several items that need to be addressed, but our building inspector has been in several times And there's some minor modifications that need to be completed before we can receive a CO. I think probably the biggest outstanding item right now are some of the doors, the rated doors for the stair towers. The builder put 45-minute rated doors in, and it should be 1-hour rated doors. So currently working through that process right now, but we're hoping that sometime early to mid-July, we will be fully moved in. Our current station is really kind of falling apart. As you can see, I mean, the new station is 99% complete. There's just those minor items that we really want to get taken care of before we move in and before the contractor moves on, so that we don't have to bring them back, 5-10 months from now or whatever it might be. So
Has the elevator gotten signed off?
elevator was signed off, yes.
Okay. So it's everything you have left to do is within the scope of Andy's repertoire.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Good, Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Thank you for bringing it up. I meant to do that. And I guess I'll chuckle a little bit that the fire rating on the fire doors and the fire tower at the firehouse are it's just funny. Anyway.
Yeah.
We'll get that
Somehow the plans were reviewed and approved, but then it was somehow missed. So
All right, I'm sure you guys will get that worked out.
yeah.
Anything else for Chief Everlof? Cool.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Doug. We have next the report from EMS report. I don't think Chief Laws is on. If he is, raise your hand if you have anything to add. If not, we'll move on. Fourth is a report from Public Works Director George Sharretts. George, if you have anything to add, please feel free. If not, next is our report from Andy Reczek regarding codes. He's got an activity report in there, the monthly report, our May code recap, and an outdoor restaurant code COVID report. Does anybody have any questions for Andy on any of that? Great. Next is our financial manager, Rich LaFiata. He's got our monthly financial report and the May treasurer's report. Rich, do you have anything to add, or does anybody have any questions for Rich? Nope. Good. Next is a report from Arlene Caruso, our library director. I trust everybody's had a chance to review that. If Arlene has anything to add, speak now. If not, we'll move on. Next is our report from our EAC, Bruce Killian. Bruce, if you have anything to add, please raise your hand. If not, we will move on. We have a report from Rich Enow for the Joint Recreation Committee. I don't know if Rich is on. If he has anything to add. If not, we'll review the report. Then we have a report from our Wade Pollock at Parks and Recreation. Wade, if you're on, if you have anything to add, you need to add, let me know. If not, we'll move on. And then finally, we have two more reports. One from our engineer, Eileen Nelson. Eileen, there's no report listed. Do you have anything to add or anything we need to talk about?
Nothing to fully discuss unless anyone has any questions, but as mentioned previously in the meeting, the road program schedule is a little fluid because they encountered some issues when milling in Florida Park and then kind of jumped ahead on the schedule to another area. So we're trying to continually get updated schedules from them to make sure that the latest is on the website. Also, with respect to the Clearbrook Culvert, I am working with the contractor, but their supplier has not gotten them the required information that we requested on the stone. I will report as soon as I get it.
Eileen, there's no issue with us getting the road program done this year, is there?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, no problem.
I believe the schedule indicates that it should be all completed by the end of August.
So theoretically, if we don't make that, we still got all September, October, and half of November to finish it if by some token we run into any major problems.
The fact that Glasgow supplies their own materials is a big help.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Eileen?
I don't have any questions. I just want, so it's in the minutes that I did send Eileen, and I know there's an email going back and forth that she asked for clarification. I'll follow up with her, but 3 residents reached out regarding stormwater issues. The first one, which is in an area that we are already evaluating through the engineer over in the Heights, 309 Fairview Avenue, which is the Bell residence, 48B Delmont Road, which is the Robertson Cawley residence, and 27 Delmont Road, which is the Edwards residence, the last 2 of them in the same neighborhood across from Westchester Pike down from Media Line Road.
Right.
Again, wanted to make sure that that's in the record that we are trying to come up with, or at least evaluate the situations of what's causing those flooding issues.
Okay. So noted. Anybody else have anything for Eileen? All right, moving on to the manager. Mr. Nice, do you have anything?
I do have a couple things that I just want to go through with for you and make sure that we're in good stead. One is we've received some complaints from some of the residents related to the wonderful I'm going to call it droppings that are left in our driveways, related to the bags with the little flyers or newspaper thingies in them, the ads. And so we do have a sample ordinance that has been sent to us by the chairman. And if the board is interested, we'll go ahead and move forward with putting an ordinance together related to, it's basically going to be considered litter. And if everybody's okay with that, we will move forward with putting an ordinance together for you to consider for that purpose.
Everybody's good with that?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Good. The next thing, if you haven't heard, the governor has announced that our area will be going green at the end of this week. And as that has happened, some questions have come up related to our parks and what we are going to do related to our parks. And so the question it becomes, do we open playgrounds? Do we open restrooms? Do we open back up the pavilion? And what about athletic fields? Based on the advice from the state rec group, I don't see it as being a problem to open those things back up. The biggest challenge that we have is, again, manpower to properly disinfect. So if the board were to want to go ahead and open all of those or some of those, I would suggest that at this point we basically put a statement out that, we are not disinfecting per CDC guidelines, that we would recommend that you clean your area before using.
I think that's appropriate.
Yeah, perhaps a sign to that effect in front of the, I guess, the major equipment or the park entrance or something that states that. I've seen that in other communities where they're opening facilities, but they're putting a sign there that says this is not cleaned in accordance with CDC, blah, 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 use at your own risk type of thing.
Yep. So if you're comfortable with that, we'll go ahead and do that. We'll start obviously focusing on the areas that we can do easily, and then we'll move. It'll probably take us a week to go through and do that all across all of our parks, but we will do so. The one thing I do have is a request from the NEL, the Newtown Edgemont Little League, to use Gable Field this weekend for a tournament that they're doing. They have assured me that they would take care of, they would eliminate the use of the bleachers, which they're recommending not be used anyhow. So they're eliminating the use of the bleachers. They'll cordon them off or move them. They would clean the dugouts between each game, and they would, if we were to open the bathrooms for them, they would clean the bathrooms every 3 hours, which is within the CDC guidelines. So if you're comfortable with that, we would open that field up for them to use this weekend for that.
Is anybody uncomfortable with that? Looks like we're all comfortable with it, Mr. Nice.
All right. And with that, I believe I'm finished. Everything else is on the agenda.
I have a question. I have a question for Mr. Neese. In the last storm, there were numerous trees that fell along Goshen Road between Echo Valley Lane and 252 that are on the Toll Brothers Lister property. And this has been continuous in every major storm we've had in the last 15 years. I think we need to have a meeting with Toll Brothers and the Lister Homeowners Association, and we have to come up with a game plan to address these very large trees that are in very poor shape that continue to fall. We were out of power in our neighborhood for almost 3 days. And it's always the same area where these trees fall. And right now, if you go down there, all the trees were just cut and thrown on the side of the road, basically almost in the lane of travel. And that is, in my opinion, the homeowner or property owner that owns those trees should be responsible for those trees and to clean them up. And we have a half a tree that was split right between Rockwell Farm Road and 252 on the north side is the one that came down with, I don't know, I think the telephone pole's still hanging out halfway through the wires where they haven't had a chance to replace that those wires onto the new pole. But this has to be addressed. This cannot continue to go on like this. They're not affected because they have everything underground, but everybody else in the neighborhood is affected by their lack of maintenance to these trees. And I think it gets to the point where, you know, it's the same issue. You know, it's either Toll Brothers' responsibility to resolve this before they leave, or we have to have an agreement with the homeowners association that they have to have a tree/arborist come by and look at these trees and determine which ones have to be taken down or which ones can be stayed and trimmed up, whatever it may be. But this is just, I got numerous complaints. I mean, I had 250 neighbors without power, and I probably had about 50 phone calls, and it's just not acceptable. I personally have a generator, so I was not affected, but a lot of people in my neighborhood do not have generators, and they don't want to run them for 4 days or 3.5 days anyway.
Mr. Russo, well said. I will add, as my understanding that on the state highway such as Goshen Road, that it's PennDOT's position that once the trees are cleared, it is the property owner's responsibility then to remove them from the sides of the road. PennDOT only clears the lanes. So I think it would be therefore Toll Brothers or whoever owns the property's responsibility to clean up that debris. Secondly, I guess it's a question maybe for Mr. Neese. Is this type of thing, would this be covered under the tree ordinance if we were to approve the tree ordinance?
Actually, I believe that would have been, it kind of comes under the section that we took out, but
of course it does.
Yeah.
Well, we need to revisit that because I got to be honest with you, I you know, it's just not, it's, you know, the whole point is it's Listers/Toll Brothers trees, and they're affecting all the neighbors negatively. And it's not like an hour, it was almost 3.5 days. Right. And unfortunately, you know, a lot of people got affected, and it cost them, you know, a lot of internal damage, you know, from not having the power. And if they have a generator, these generators aren't designed to run for a week at a time. You know, a homeowner's generator is designed for minimal use, not continuous use for a week. So I think we definitely need to address this.
I know. I can't shut it off.
We just lost Steve's picture. Oh, there he is. He's back.
I have it down here as a list, and I will follow up with both the HOA and with Toll.
Thank you.
Steve,
and we probably should talk to Pico too about this, Steve, because they should have some input because, you know, it is a large amount of trees on the high side of the road that keep falling.
Yes.
Steve, I have 2 questions. And if you said this when you were talking about the opening of parks, I apologize. But what are we doing with the basketball courts in front of or off of Ellis Avenue? I know that that's an extremely popular basketball court. So are we opening them up come Friday as well?
It appears that they can be opened up as well. I mean, it's probably the most, it's very hard to play basketball and not be 6 feet apart, but yeah.
Unless you're playing with Ed, he's got some nasty jump shots. I'll tell you that.
But that, we'll open them back up and we'll see how it goes. I guess it depends on what you look at about whether or not it's safe to do some of these things at this time. So.
Got it. And then I don't know, I think this actually falls under George, and I apologize, I couldn't get the mute button off fast enough, but you might be able to shed some light on it. Where are we with the curb policy? Has that, I think the last time it was brought up, I guess in like January or February. And then I don't know if anything has kind of happened with it since. So just kind of following up on that.
Yeah, it kind of, to be honest with you, as the COVID stuff came in, it kind of got put back on the back burner.
Yep.
Mostly because as we think at it, we thought it would be able to do kind of the same approach that we would do with traffic calming. However, with the curb piece, there's actually an expense that goes back really to the resident, because the curbing is the resident's issue. So we're looking at the percentage of people that would have to agree for us to do it because of the cost and those kind of things. So we're working through that.
Got it. So do we have a game plan? And I completely understand it falling by the wayside during coronavirus, but do we have a tentative timeline of when we think that we'll be addressing that again as a board?
If you can, let us look over it over the next month and a half, and we'll try to get it, if it's already in the September timeframe, before, and that way I can work with our engineer and vacation schedules and everything, and try to have something before you in September.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Neese? All right. Moving on, item number 11, we have two fund transfers. 11.1 is consider approving transferring $578.50 from the Newtown Township consolidated account to the escrow account. A single check was given for a permit and escrow payment.
So moved for approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve the item. Anybody have any questions regarding the item? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. 11.2, consider approving transfer $885.50 from the Newtown Township bond account to the stormwater account. A check was released on stormwater check stock when it was a bond account expense.
So moved for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to approve item 11.2. Any questions on this item or the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We have one item under budget adjustment, item 12.1. This is consider approving budget increase 2020-04, which is increasing the general fund budget. And we are increasing the other income account by $7,695, and we're increasing the signal repairs other by $7,965. The increases will come from a direct payment from Aqua PA for replacement of traffic loops destroyed during the installation of their water line on Gradyville Road.
So moved for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to approve item 12.1. Any questions regarding this item? Mr. Neese, this was money received from Aqua. They're not going to do the loop replacements. We're going to do the loop replacements.
So the idea is, instead of doing loop replacements, we're actually doing video.
Oh, fantastic.
They would have done loop replacements because that's what they damaged when they did the project. And so we wanted to do the video. We won't have to worry about that in the future by doing the video.
Oh, agreed. Much better idea. I like that. Okay. Any further questions on the item? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, payments. We have a couple payments here. Just looking through and see if we can take these all at once. Let's take the first two, then we'll take the second two. Item 13.1 and 13.2, consider approving the $1,130.50 escrow release payment to Toth Brothers Cleaning and Dredging for a completed grading project at 3600 St. David's Road, and consider approving the $409 escrow release payment to Nicola Octaviano for a completed project at the Kelly Road subdivision.
So moved.
Say again?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Any further questions or discussions on the particular motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next two involve TD Ameritrade. Item 13.3 is consider approving the $132,550.25 second quarter pension plan payment to TD Ameritrade for uniform employees. And 13.4 is consider approving the $51,142 second quarter pension payment to TD Ameritrade for non-uniform employees. Would anybody like to offer a motion on those items?
So move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Altieri to approve items 13.3 and 13.4. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda is item 14, bills. I had the opportunity before this evening's meeting to review the check register A dated today, June 22nd, 2020, in the amount of $566,062.34. And this is my motion that we approve the payment of those bills. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Any questions or discussion on the bills? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Bring us to item 15, land development approval. The first one is item 15.1, consider approving the land development waiver request for the shed at Rafferty Subaru.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
before we talk about this, do we want to put this on hold until next meeting and give Mr. Neese a chance to talk to them about the other Rafferty issues in town with the parking?
I don't know. What's the board's feeling on that?
I got to be honest, every time we do something for these folks, we have to, fight them tooth and nail to enforce it. And I really don't feel like giving them a waiver right now until we talk to them about parking all these vehicles in odd spots that aren't supposed to be parked. And by doing this, I think they can wait another, 2 weeks, in my opinion. That's just that one person.
I guess a question for Joe or Rich, is there any reason why we have to consider this evening? Are we under any time deadlines or anything like that?
This is Joe. I don't know because I don't know when the application was filed.
Rich has his hand up.
Yeah, Rich has his hand up. Go ahead, Rich.
Chairman, I'm promoting him to panelist. It may take him just a moment.
He's been promoted. Rich, can you hear us? Still showing his microphone and his video are off.
I believe he has to do that.
There he is.
I got you.
Hey, there he is.
So the answer is I do not believe they filed an application. It's just this waiver request. So I don't think you have a time deadline. And you can postpone it another 2 weeks without harm.
I think we should definitely postpone another 2 weeks and let Mr. Neese have a conversation with them this week and see how that goes, because I got to be honest with you. What we discussed when they came in about the renovation to the building, and then the next thing you know, we're arguing about taking the truck off the roadway to unload it. So I really don't feel a comfort level in bending over backwards for people that try to take advantage of us.
I'm with you, Mr. Russo. Any board members feel differently? Shall we just simply table this item and then to our next meeting? Looks like everybody's good with that, Mr. Neese.
Okay.
You could let the folks from Rafferty Subaru know, and we can discuss this at the next meeting. Good? All right. So now let's move on to the item that everyone's been waiting for. Item 15.
Well, wait a second.
Oh, go ahead.
Just so you know, Mr. Rafferty has his hand up. Did you want to?
Well, I suppose it'd be fair to let him speak. So yes, go ahead. You can allow him to speak. Mr. Rafferty, you can speak if you unmute yourself. Oh, there we go.
There we go. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. Good evening, everyone. As far as Mr. Russo's comments, I do have an application on file from 5/18/20. I don't know if that changes your guidelines as far as addressing this situation or not. And I'm not sure really what the shed issue has to do with anything else. And Mr. Russo, I do take a little offense to your comments as far as you guys bending over backwards and us not applying with or complying with your request. But I guess that's your opinion and that's fine. So I'll go back to the initial request of, I have a permit application of 5/18/20, and I'm not sure how that changes anything this evening. And if you want to table things and Mr. Neese wants to discuss things with us, that's fine.
I guess the question for Mr. Sikora. Mr. Sikora, this application, is that a land development application? Is that a zoning application or what?
It's a waiver to go to, it's a waiver to not go to zoning.
So there's no time limit.
I haven't seen a land development application. I don't know if it's just a simple building permit.
It was a simple building permit,
Okay,
which is what the township told me I needed to apply for.
that's fine. There's no time limit associated with a building permit, as I understand it. Then I think we're still the position that we want to table this until our next meeting.
Can I ask why?
I think Mr. Russo stated that we have some concerns with some other issues regarding your parking of vehicles around the township. And I think we'd like to discuss that before we take any further action on any other requests from you, especially when you're requesting a waiver.
Okay. I'm not sure what the two have to do with each other, but
well, other than the fact that they're both from Rafferty Subaru.
Well, I think the location of this shed directly impacts parking and inventory parking. And then you have
it's 8 parking spots, sir.
What's that?
It's 8 parking spots.
Yeah.
Well, that's 8 parking spots that could be used for inventory.
And the old shed is coming down, which covers 8 parking spots.
Okay.
Just a point of clarification, Mr. Chairman. I think that there was a motion to table this, so we're either going to table it or we're going to get into the discussion of it. But I think the decision has already been made to table it, and because we do have other items since that motion has been made already, I think that we should continue with what was already approved. Table this for the next couple of weeks and move forward. There's no time restrictions here. And like I said, since Mr. Russo did make that motion, and as we know, a motion to table doesn't need to be seconded, I think that this situation is resolved for now.
You are correct, Mr. Octerio. We will move on. Thank you for your comments, Mr. Rafferty. All right, moving on. Item 15.2. This is a presentation of a proposed settlement agreement between the Township and Fort Joy Development 2 LP and the Village of Four Seasons in the matter of Fort Joy Development LP versus Newtown Township Board. This is regarding the Township's denial of the developer's conditional use application and regarding the proposed Cherry Blossom Lane to be considered at tonight's meeting. And there's a whole bunch of things here. Now, before we get started, I want to couch the discussion and bring everybody up to speed, since there seems to be a lot of misunderstanding and misinformation regarding what exactly is going on here. Once I'm done, Mr. Catania will fill in if I missed anything or correct me if I misstated anything, and then we will move on from there. Just so everyone understands, number one, this is resulting from a denial that the township denied the applicant's request to extend a road to Gradyville Road. In 2016, the original application was made. The township denied it in 2018. This was not again, this was not the township's doing. It was in fact our neighbors in Marple Township, where the developer has an adjacent development that I think everyone's familiar with, because they complain to us all the time about all the land development that's going on there, and it turns out it's on Marple, not here. But nonetheless, that development is adjacent to property that the developer owns in Newtown Township also. As part of his Marple Township approval, the Marple commissioners told him that he had to get another access point for his development. His only other access point would be Gradyville Road in Newtown Township. So the developer made an application to Newtown Township to create essentially a 2-lot subdivision, taking his entire property, dividing it into 2 lots, and create a road to Gradyville Road. That was heard at numerous meetings, numerously public advertised meetings through 2017 and into 2018, if I remember correctly. There was testimony presented. There was a traffic study presented, and the township ultimately denied that application. Upon denial, the developer, within his rights, appealed the denial to the Delaware County Court of Common Pleas. The Delaware County Court of Common Pleas has come back to the township, and with a perhaps we'll call it a settlement. In other words, the township has said that a better location for the road from a traffic safety standpoint would be aligned with Stony Brook Boulevard on Gradyville Road, rather than where it was originally proposed. The developer is not willing to move the road at no cost. He wants something for that. So he's come up with a plan that shows a certain yield of lots, and has asked for certain requests from primarily some steep slope ordinances. Now, as I understand it, and based on our previous testimony, as a yield, and I'm going to use approximate numbers here, the lot size in the zoning is approximately 65,000 square feet, and the developer had stated that that yields approximately 35 lots. The settlement with the developer specifies approximately, I want to say 50,000 square foot lot with 50 lots, 47 which are buildable. There were 3 lots that were had such a substantial steep slope impact that the township would not approve the building of those lots. What the settlement does is it fixes the average size of the lots, the number of the lots, the location of the roads, and grants him relief to certain, not all, but certain steep slope variances. It is not a land development approval. He cannot take this settlement agreement, if the township agrees to it, and start building houses. He still has to come in through planning to get our planning process. He still has to come into the township, get approval, file a land development plan where we're going to talk about trees and stormwater management and things like that. Again, the only thing this agreement sets is the location of the roads, the number of lots, the average size of those lots. And again, this is all brought by the fact that Marple Township requires him, in order for his Marple Township development to go forward, to have a connection to another road. And the only other road he has frontage on is Gradyville Road. Now, let me say this, that this is not, the township is not driving a bus on this. Okay, this is a matter before the Delaware County Court of Common Pleas. It's up to the judge who's been assigned to this case to negotiate this and rule. So you could say that regardless of what we do, the judge is going to rule on this, that there in all likelihood will be a road connecting with Gradyville Road, whether we accept this agreement or not. The question is it going to be where the township would prefer to have it, or where the developer originally proposed it? It should also be noticed that there is another party to the agreement. The property owner on Gradyville Road at the location of the original proposed location by the developer also filed a motion in intervenor status and is part of the agreement. So he has asked the township to reconsider another location for the road. And as we understand it, based on the comments, we have now residents also asking us to put it back where the developer wanted. So we were kind of caught between 2 different groups of residents now. So again, the township is not driving the bus, and we are not giving the developer approval to build anything. It's simply we are approving a settlement agreement or denying a settlement agreement. Chances are, if we were to deny the settlement agreement, then maybe the court rules in favor of the developer in the original location, and he gets the road back where, frankly, the township doesn't want it. The decision is driven fundamentally by traffic safety. Okay, it is far safer to have a road, an intersection, a 4-way intersection, than it is to have a series or 2 in this case, 2 3-way or dogleg type intersections. Okay, the traffic is going to go where the traffic is going to go. If they have to make a left and then a right, as opposed to simply going across the street, well, that creates a greater traffic issue. From a safety standpoint, it's far safer to have a 4-way intersection than it is to have a series of 3-way intersections. Plus, there's the impact of vehicles on Gradyville Road, as opposed to just simply driving across Gradyville. They would now be driving up and down Gradyville, which is a township roadway. We need to look no further. I need to look no further than outside my own window to see the impacts of this in our own township, where for instance, Ellis Avenue intersects Westchester Pike to form a T intersection, and then about 250 feet away, School Lane or Charles Ellis Drive intersects Westchester Pike to create another T intersection. The developer's original proposal was to have a straight through 4-way intersection with Westchester Pike at Ellis Avenue. Township, long before any of the current board members were involved, denied that. The developer put the Bryn Mawr Health Center in that to preclude ever going back to doing that. And now we're left with a unsignalized T intersection, which for the most part is almost impossible to get out of anymore, and will likely result in the township having to put a traffic signal in there in the future, and maintaining a traffic signal at Charles Ellis Drive. So that's not a good idea. If we were to end up with 2 3-way or T intersections on Gradyville Road, we might potentially in the long run, way down the road, have to maintain 2 traffic signals as opposed to potentially 1. And that's not to say that a traffic signal is needed or will be ever needed there in the future. The developer's traffic study submitted back in 2016 did not indicate that there was much of a traffic impact at all. So that's where we stand, and that's what's before us. Now, because this is not a land development application, there is no requirements under our ordinances or the municipality's planning code to formally advertise this development. And when I say advertise, I guess everyone misunderstands. Advertisement means we publish a notice in a newspaper that most people don't even find anyhow. As part of the developer's original land development application, he did advertise it. All the meetings were advertised, and he did submit letters to the adjacent property owners at the time, which would have included people in Springton Point. So since there was no application before the board this time as a land development, there was no need or requirement to, quote, advertise this particular development. So what is before the board is simply whether we want to agree or agree to this agreement or not. That's all that's before the board. If we choose not to agree, the court may interpret it as, okay, we're just going to give him the driveway where, frankly, we don't want it. If we were to agree, then maybe the court takes that into consideration. Of course, there's no guarantee either. We're not driving the bus. It's also noted that the Springton Point Residents Association, or whatever, homeowner association, I believe, has filed an intervenor petition. Now, that's not filed with the township as part of this hearing. That is filed with the Court of Common Pleas, that they're intervening on that decision. It doesn't affect our decision, and the board can decide what they want to do with that. As far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't oppose their position on that, and really that's between them and the Court of Common Pleas, not them and the township. So with that being said, and I hope I covered all the points I wanted to cover, I guess the first thing I want to do is I want to ask our solicitor, Mr. Catania, to fill in any blanks that I might have missed.
Hey, John, before you do, can I just make 2 quick comments?
Mr. Partridge?
I think there's 2 key things that you just said, and I just want to really put more emphasis on them. I was on the board when this initially came to us for approval, the initial location of the road. And my recollection, and I know how I voted, it was purely on the safety issue. It really came down to safety. That location, did not provide the visibility for safe conditions on Gradyville Road. And that's my recollection of why it was denied. And the second key issue I think you made, and just to again repeat it, is that what's before us tonight is a judge's compromise between the township and a land developer. This settlement agreement is simply that. It's the judge's compromise that he's asking the board, if they would, to move forward with. So that's I just want to add those 2 points.
Thank you, Mr. Partridge.
Thank you.
Mr. Catania, is there anything I missed or anything that you need to cover further?
No, I don't really think you missed much, but I will say that when the denial, the original board's denial was appealed, when it goes to the Court of Common Pleas, it gets scheduled before a judge, and this happens to be Judge Whalen, and the judge usually does a conference first, and he looks at both party sides, and he doesn't get too much into detail, but he says, is there any chance that this matter can be resolved if I send it to a settlement judge? And the township and the developer agreed to send it to a settlement judge to try to resolve the issue. So it takes it temporarily out of the trial path. So for the last, there was delay with COVID and presenting it, but for quite a while, there was conferences with Judge Burr, who was the settlement judge, and the township and the developer with their engineers met, presented our sides, and this, as you stated, settlement agreement or proposal was presented with the advice of Judge Burr, not the trial judge. So what happens is, since we're the township, we have to approve any of these agreements at a public meeting. It does not, as you said, have to be advertised, but for those who are in attendance at the meeting 2 weeks ago, we thought it would be prudent to post it on the website 2 weeks in advance of tonight, so that the public could see what was going on, as opposed to what normally happens. The agenda gets posted the week before the meeting. So we gave, and I think that's what generated the petition to intervene filed by it's Springton Point Estates Homeowners Association. It looks like Mr. and Mrs. Lopez and Mr. and Mrs. Hedberg. And what that petition does is it asks the court, can they intervene in the case to present their issues to the court? And that has not been heard. There is another settlement, I'm sorry, not a settlement conference. There is a status conference, I would say, scheduled before Judge Whalen, the trial judge, next week. And I presume that's going to be done by virtual meeting, and the judge is going to know what the status is, and that judge Whalen will have the petition to intervene and make a decision on that. And I think is what the chairman, John, you indicated that you wouldn't, it's your opinion that you would not oppose their request to intervene and present their issues in the Court of Common Pleas case. That was, I think that's what you said.
That is my opinion. I can't speak for the whole board, but
right.
That's my opinion, yes.
I agree.
Mine as well.
I think we're getting a little bit of agreement on that too, Joe.
So I mean, that's basically the issue. So the board can go one of two ways tonight. They can, listen to the public comment or do the public comment no matter what on the issue. They can, you can make a decision on whether to approve the judge's proposal, which would then go back to Judge Whalen. And then at the same time, Judge Whalen would have to approve the agreement. But before he would do that, I presume, if it was me, I'd have to make a ruling on the petition to intervene by Springton Point Estates and the other two couples. So that's going to be heard no matter what. Or you can wait to see what happens on the petition to intervene, and we'll be right back where we were probably, I would say, by the first meeting, our meeting in July.
All right, thank you, Mr. Catania. What I think I'd like to do at this point is, number one, there's one hand up. I'd ask that person, Cindy Mahalo, to put your hand down. I can't tell from the list of people that are here whether the applicant himself is represented, and I would ask those folks if they would put up there and raise their hand so we can give them the opportunity to speak and make a presentation if they wish to, and then we can discuss it accordingly. So if you are here on behalf of the applicant, please raise your hand so that we can acknowledge you. And
This is Rich Sikora, not on behalf of the applicant, but I did speak with Mr. Kynette earlier today. I believe he was going to participate via telephone this evening. So I don't know if that makes a difference on your end of what you're looking for.
well, I've got I've got at least 4, 5, 6 phone numbers listed here. If Mr. Kynette is one of those numbers, I'd ask him to please indicate that so we can allow him to speak. I don't know how you do that on the phone.
Yeah, if he can't raise his hand from the phone, there is a instruction it gives you as you come in, and I don't recall what it is. But if he can't do that, if he would send an email to public comment, all one word, at Newtown Township, again, one word.org, with his phone number, we would recognize it.
Here. I have the phone number.
Okay.
I just lost it. Hold on. 610.
Yes.
291 3526.
That's not one of the ones that we
The
have.
numbers listed.
He's not on, or he's on a different phone.
Yeah, he may be on a different phone.
I believe it may be the 565-2670 number. I think that's their offices.
I'm getting those little bubbles that tell you somebody's texting. Hold on. But it's probably, Eileen's probably right. It's probably that 565 number.
I can allow them to talk.
Yeah, why don't you allow that number to talk and we'll see if that's them.
The 610-565 number is now unmuted.
Yeah, that's our office number that came through. I apologize.
Okay.
I sent you myself.
Sounds like Ken. Ken, if you're on, please proceed.
It is. It's Ken Kynette here. At this point, I really don't have anything to add.
Okay. Is there anything that I said that you don't agree with, or anything that Joe said you don't agree with?
No, I think that really just, I guess, in terms of timing, the reply date for the newest petition to intervene from the Springton Point Estates Homeowners Association is after Judge Whalen's conference, which is next week. So that won't be decided next week. So I just wanted to point that out because I wasn't quite sure from Joe's participation if clear.
Well, yeah, what I was thinking was, even if the response isn't due by then, it would probably be discussed at the conference.
Oh, absolutely. I don't see how it could not be.
Right.
Okay, and that's fine. And I guess let me clarify for everybody that's listening and everybody that submitted comments. The board's not really in a position to discuss the nuances, the finer points, the technical issues of the settlement agreement, since it is a settlement agreement in the court, not amongst the board. This is what the court has presented essentially to us. So we're not really here to discuss, whether this is the right number of lots or whether this is the right alignment of the road or anything like that. It's really is this something that we would agree to or not, is what's before us. What I want to do at this point then is we received a number of comments. I want to read by those names of who sent comments, and then ask the board members if they all had a chance to review those comments. And then we'll hear from board members, and then if any members of the audience or the public there want to comment further on this particular application, if you haven't already submitted comments, then we'll be happy to hear from you. So as of this evening, we have received comments from the following, and I'll apologize in advance if I don't get your name right. I will do my best. We have comments from Shanaz and Ali. Last name begins with an A. They're at 24 Springton Point Drive. They are in opposition. We have comment from Michael Beaumont at 30 Springton Point Drive. They are in opposition. We have comment from a Cassandra Benedetto with no address given, so we really can't consider that comment, but they are in opposition also. We have comments in the form of 3 emails from Ashy Bond at 4 Springton Point Drive. In his submission, he has a whole list of questions that are included with his email. Again, we're not necessarily addressing those questions. That would be something that the courts would address. We have comment from Leslie and Andrew Brown at 7 Old Forest Road. We have comments from Mike and Linda Cavanaugh at 19 Stony Brook Boulevard. They're also in opposition. Nicholas and Marie Cavaracci at 40 Sleepy Hollow Drive. They're in opposition. Glenn and Cindy Cooper at 19 Sleepy Hollow Drive in opposition. Carl and Ann Dimengian at 26 Springton Point Drive in opposition. Elaine DeStefano at 2 Lakeview Place in opposition. Judy Galati at 4 Laurel Lane in opposition. Prado Gupta at 17 Old Forest Road is actually for the settlement agreement. Judith Hall McLaughlin at 3718 Gradyville Road. Richard and Georgette Hedberg at 2 Laurel Lane. Bob Hemenick at 12 Stony Brook Boulevard. He is requesting answers to his submitted questions. Again, they would be better addressed to the courts. Marilyn Holmstrom at 6 Laurel Lane. Katie and John Coco at 17 Stony Brook Boulevard. Ray and Marie Lopez at 22 Old Forest Road. Lay has filed a petition to intervene. Anthony Madrigal at 30 Heather Way. Anthony and Bonnie Mazziani at 5 Baker's Lane. Joe McComb at 21 Heather Way. He's requesting a traffic study. One has been prepared, is part of the record, and should be available. 3870 Gradyville Road, that is Lee McCrone in opposition. Brian and Diane McDonough, no address given. They're in opposition, but we can't consider that as there's no address given. Joseph and Martha McIlvain, 106 Stony Brook Boulevard in opposition. Cynthia Miller, no address given. Therefore, we can't really consider that, but they're in opposition. Carol Moore, 9 Frog Hollow Lane, and Edward Moore, 9 Frog Hollow Lane. 2 separate emails, both in opposition. Neil Oberholzer at 12 Heather Way in opposition. Shaban Quinn Robinson at 2 Cherry Lane in opposition. Dan and Marie Ryder, 1 Old Forest Road in opposition. Jean Ruggieri, 5 Old Forest Road in opposition. Janet Russell, 39 Sleepy Hollow Drive in opposition. Rosemary Shell, 23 Stony Brook Boulevard in opposition. Margaret Slattery, no address given, therefore we really can't consider it, but she's also in opposition. Popkin Shemanin at 12 Springton Point Drive in opposition. Annie Spears, 8 Lakeshore Drive in opposition. Francie Strathman, 3840 Gradyville Road in opposition. Fred Strathman, 3840 Gradyville Road in opposition. He's stated that he has seen northern red-bellied turtles in the Geist Reservoir, which are endangered, as well as bald eagles. So noted. Rich and Carolyn Sukan at 2 Old Forest Road in opposition. Donna Sullivan at 12 Laurel Lane in opposition. Klon Tran at 1 Laurel Lane in opposition. Theodore Vidot at 4 Rose Glen Court in opposition. Pontish Yermanin at 8 Lakeshore Drive in opposition. Zenyun Yin at 459 Sleepy Hollow Drive in opposition. And Kathleen and Doug Young at 21 Stony Brook Boulevard in opposition. That is the extent of written comments that we have received. I'll ask all board members, have you all had a chance to review those comments and are aware of those comments?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Fantastic. I'm hearing in the affirmative. Now, at this point, are there any board members that would like to comment on this or ask any questions or anything?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I can interrupt you, we've received, I believe it's 3 emails since the meeting has started that you would not have seen.
Do you want to read them, or can you already extend it? Or
I can read them. One of them is pretty long, but I'll try to get through it pretty quickly. Dear supervisors, we have, first let me give the name, Betsy, and I believe it's Cancellary. Dear supervisors, we've been—
What's her address?
Oh, I'm sorry. 18 Stony Brook Boulevard.
Okay, thank you.
We've we've been in Springton Point development for over 23 years. We were one of the first owners that purchased in the development. When we purchased, the road for the houses was not even mapped out. We had no idea that Stony Brook would turn into a major cut through to relieve traffic on Westchester Pike and as well as Route 252. The supervisors at the time felt it in the best interest of the township to demand that Stony Brook Boulevard align with Campus Boulevard along Bishop Hollow. It is and never will be in the best interest of the residents and the taxpayers to allow additional traffic to flow through the residential area. If we attempt to leave our house at any time after 4 p.m., there's almost 20-minute backup on Gradyville Road to reach the light at Route 252. There's at least a 15-minute backup on along Troop Farm Road at Route 252 at 252 as well. In addition, it's rather hazardous to try to back out of our driveway. Our youngest just received her license, and we make her turn around in the driveway and pull onto Stony Brook Boulevard since many cars speed along the road. Unless the Township of Newtown and Marple are willing to widen Route 252, which is a state-owned highway, we along Stony Brook Boulevard and True Farm will bear the brunt of the traffic. There are more and more children in our neighborhood that you are putting at risk. In addition, didn't the developer, DeBaton, also own the land across from Campus Boulevard on Westchester Pike, which remains an eyesore, undeveloped for well over 10 years? Also, the developer built the Marvel Shopping Center, which has numerous sewer issues. The township should stand up for the residents of Newtown Township and protect the residents. Dangerous slopes, vision lines on Gradyville Road will create several hazardous and result in multiple accidents. You can simply make sure that such roads align, then the residents of in Four Seasons should not be permitted to travel straight across to Springton Point Estate and vice versa. You should make traffic turn right or left, and the same for the folks leaving Springton Point Estates onto Gradyville. They would have to turn right or left. This would limit the traffic attempting to cut through along Route 252. The easiest road to access would be along 252, which is a major highway. Thank you, Betsy. The next one is from Jean and Tom Mitero. I apologize if I got it wrong. To whom it may concern, they're at 8 Laurel Lane, sorry. To whom it may concern, we are residents of Springton Point Estates. We have concerns regarding the possible entrance from the community on Gradyville Road. This entrance would increase traffic flow throughout the community, which many already use as a cut through. Having an opposing entrance would create a potential hazardous turns in and out of the community. This could pose serious safety concerns. They are putting a bike route through the community as well, which is going to take away our neighborhood feel as well as already with constant outside traffic. We feel the entrance would be better suited away from the community as it not create dangerous situation or disturb the residents who back up to Gradyville Road. And again, that was from them. And then, Mr. Chairman, we didn't receive this till later, but I thought we already had one from this group, from this family. Anthony and Bonnie Marciani at 5 Baker Lane.
Yes, I believe we have something from them already.
Yeah, this was actually received at 7:12, and it's relatively short. I'm strongly against putting Connector Road, Cherry Blossom Lane in line with Stony Brook entrance. We have too much traffic coming through our development. Building these houses will add to the congestion in our township, causing additional deterioration of our roads, which are in bad shape as it stands. On many occasions, I have seen vehicles using Stony Brook Boulevard as an egress to get onto Bishop Hollow Road, going illegal speeds, often running stop signs. Please do not allow this road to be placed on Stony Brook Road. Those are the other public comments that we had, Mr. Chairman. And before I started reading, we also have 2 hands that are raised.
Yes, I saw those. One from Cindy Mahalo and then another one from A, whoever A is. Why don't we start with Cindy Mahalo first?
Hello?
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Cindy.
Hi, Cindy Mahalo, 87 Hunters Run. I'm Penn State Master Watershed Steward and Vice Chair of the EAC, but I'm speaking as a private citizen. I had some comments to make, but based on the explanation, which was very helpful, which you provided, I'd like to start with a question or two, and that is, Supervisor Nawn said that the settlement agreement only sets like the number and the sizes of lots and the location of the road, that it is not a land develop application. And yet, if that is the case, and there was much discussion, most of the discussion has been focused on the placement of the road. And that may be, but the fact is that this settlement actually talks about a lot of other things and grants extensive relief to the applicant, which seems to be totally unrelated to the road and kind of seems to get ahead of the point of a land development application. So I wondered if you could just address why the settlement addresses all the other, it grants the applicant relief from 15 of the township's most fundamental codes and regulations. Why is that all part of the settlement agreement if the settlement agreement is supposed to be just about the placement of the road?
Well, again, in the placement of the road and the lots that the developer wanted for his movement of the road, in other words, to in the court-directed settlement there had to be some relief on certain things like setbacks and things like that on some of the lots. There wasn't a way to engineer that without them, according to the developer. And I think a lot of the relief you're talking about has to do with setbacks, front yard, side yard, rear yard on some of the lots and things like that. Minor issues individually that taken as a whole seem like a lot, but there was no way to, if we started to go through all those issues and the developer simply wouldn't agree to then moving the road, and we would just proceed with the court proceeding, and which we think we might be on the losing end of. So there were certain concessions that had to be made to simply come up with that settlement plan as it's presented presently.
Yeah. Of the 15 codes and regulations that are granted, that the applicant has been granted relief on, exhibits B and C in the documents that were provided in the agenda show the really disturbing extent of relief that has been granted to the recipient. Exhibit C shows, which talks about the slope ordinance, shows that 11 out of 50 properties would disturb between 70 and 100% of very steep slopes. That's 100% of the steep slopes that are on the property would be disturbed. Now, the current ordinance limits steep slope disturbance to a mere 5%. And it just, you can see in the red column there, I don't know if you're looking at Exhibit C. I think you're on B.
We're on B right now.
I mean, and these statistics are all right here. If you look in the right-hand column and count them up, it shows you the percent of steep slope, very steep slope disturbance. And I counted them up. And there are 6, properties that disturb more than 90% of the very steep slopes, whereas our ordinance, which sets forth the guidelines to protect our residents and to protect our community, limit it to 5%. This is just an enormous amount of relief that's being granted.
The 3 lots that are at 100% are the 3 lots that we are not agreeing that can be built on at this time. So the lot line remains, but the developer's got no approval to build anything on those lots. So it's up to him to come in for a zoning hearing for those 3 lots, in other words.
Well, you know, Supervisor Nawn, I thought the same thing, but as I read the agreement, those lots, I forget what they're called, reserved lots,
Yes.
I think are lots 26, 27, and 28. And none of those 3 lots are the lots that have 100% disturbance. The 100% disturbance lots are lots 1, 2, 25, 45, and 50. Because I thought the same thing. I thought, well, they must be holding those lots and categorizing them as the reserve lots, but that's not the case. So I just really question the amount of relief that is granted for that. Another problem I see is that I don't see any areas, I know this is not a land development application, but I see no areas designated for stormwater management infrastructure. And in a typical development like this, it's very commonplace in our township for stormwater to be managed in stormwater detention basins. And given the fact that so much of the land that is not set aside for houses and driveways is extremely steep slope or wetlands, I don't know where they're going to put in the detention basins that are going to be required for this.
Well, neither do I, Ms. Mahalo, but we've not granted him any relief from compliance with our stormwater management ordinance. So the burden is on the developer to figure out how he's going to do that. There's no relief granted in that. This is not setting a development plan. It's simply setting an average lot size and the number of lots and the location of the roads. It could change as long as the average lot size doesn't change, the number of lots doesn't change, things of that nature. Okay, so there may be some adjustments made as part of the land development process, but certainly we have not issued or granted any relief from the stormwater management. And as stated, he still has to come in with a fully engineered land development plan and meet any of our land development requirements that are not addressed or talked about in this settlement agreement.
Well, yes, there are points that talk about frontage and lot size, but you know, there are several provisions in here that deal with steep and vertical slopes and exemptions on riparian buffers, and not only for the roads, but for the homes. And I would just like to point out that the direction that this development is going and the negative impacts it will have on the streams and the water quality in our township are totally antithetical to what the township is going to have to achieve through the MS4 requirements. The township, for those who aren't aware of it, is required by the Department of Environmental Protection to improve stormwater quality over the next 5 years and ongoing in 5-year increments till 2050. The projected cost for complying with this is over $1 million to the township, most of which will have to come from taxpayers if we can't get grant funding, which is becoming extremely competitive to receive. And by granting these exceptions for the relief for very steep slopes, riparian buffers, the cutting down of the mature trees, this is very counterproductive to the township achieving its MS4 guidelines. And I don't know why, if you're just talking about lot sizes and road placement, you have to grant such sweeping relief for steep slopes, and riparian buffers.
Thank you, Ms. Mahalo.
I have one last question, and that is earlier, Chairman Nawn, you said that questions would be better addressed, or comments would be better addressed to the court.
Yes.
Because the details of this apparently are now beyond the control of the township. How does someone go about addressing comments to the court?
At least one intervener petition has been filed in this matter. I assume it was filed on behalf of the homeowners association, so I know you're not a part of that homeowners association, but I believe they are making those. They are, formulating their comments. I guess Joe, Rich, is there any other way that can residents send comments to the court in this issue?
Well, I mean, this is Rich. No, I mean, the court's not there to take comments.
Okay.
You're here to listen to the comments and vote on, either vote or postpone or whatever it is, or whatever it is you want to do. But this is the time for the public to make their voice known. The intervener, that's going to be handled separately. But the court's not interested in hearing public comment. I think what you're suggesting is, I think it just came out a little different. You're not saying everybody just call the court. I think
no, not at all.
I think what you're saying, to phrase it differently, is these are the best terms that the developer was agreeable to accomplish what the township thought, or at least what the township's goal was to accomplish. And
Yes.
so either vote it up or vote it down, or go back to court. And that's really the way. It's not encouraging people to go to write to the judge. It's not going to work.
Well, I think we paid a very high price to move a road, and I would like to ask what concessions the township got from the developer for the incredible amount of relief that has been granted. And I just want to say the one that I just cannot get over is item 9, in which the township would grant relief to any other existing zoning or saldo provision that hasn't already been identified. That's comparable to giving him a carte blanche for anything he wants to do.
No, it's not.
Rich, you want to explain that?
What the provision has to do with is to accomplish this particular, what you see on this plan. If you see down further, they still have to come in for land development and comply with all other ordinances. It's the ability to make this plan work is what that provides. In case there's another 5-foot setback issue that nobody realized with respect to this plan as it appears on this paper.
Well, he's already been given so much. I can't imagine there's any more that he would need.
Thank you, Cindy.
Mm-hmm.
Your comments have been heard by the board. Next, there is an A. Mr. Neese, if you could allow A to speak, and perhaps they'll identify themselves.
Oh, yes. I am Andrea Clancy, and I'm at 4 Mill Court. And I just want to be put on record as opposing this. I do not feel that it would be any safer to move that road. I'm opposed to the development completely, but evidently that's beyond our ability to say anything at this point about that. But I just want this on record. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, there's no development plan before the township. What is before the township is the settlement agreement based on our request to have the road moved. We denied the applicant's original application for where he wanted the road. We said, and the court worked out a settlement agreement to say, how about if we move the road here, and here's what you got to do to move the road here. So that's all we're at. And again, I want to remind everybody that while there's a substantial number of you that are opposing this, there certainly is already a resident that has filed an intervener position opposing the other location. So again, you're expecting this board to simply say, well, too many people don't want this, I do want it, and too bad for the other guy, I guess. So just, keep that in mind. Next, I guess, is we have Connie McDevitt, Mr. Neese. Still showing as muted.
Unmute.
Oh,
Hi.
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Hi. Hi. I'd like to thank everybody for their time, and a lot of this information is new to me. I did have a question in terms of the court proceedings. Who was representing us to Judge Whalen? Who was?
I would know. Hopefully you know who that is, since I imagine now there's any fees associated. They're coming out of your homeowner's fees. The petition was filed by Ray Lopez, who I believe is the chairman of the homeowners association. I know he's got an attorney. I don't know who that is off the top of my head.
So that information was forwarded to the judge, and then they used that in the decision to forward it to
Well, the judge that is
Farrar?
negotiating this agreement has to decide whether your petition will be heard or not.
Okay,
Judge Whalen will decide. It's John Mezzanotte is the attorney who filed.
okay.
the petition.
And I just like to say I'm at 23 Heather Way. I'm opposed to it. And I also wanted to mention that, you know, we're considering running a road that's parallel to a state road with traffic speeds of 45 miles an hour. And we're in a residential area with sidewalks, people walking babies and strollers and children standing at bus stops with a speed limit of 25 miles an hour. And I don't think those two things are going to translate. We had a similar situation with Hempstead. The police were called multiple times. People were blowing through stop signs, speeding down the road. And I just see that it would be purposely disastrous for our residents. I understand traffic studies, but we also have to consider the residents. And that's what I would hope our board would vehemently strive to do. And to Miss Cindy, I thank you for all your information. I think I learned a lot listening to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McDevitt. Mr. Neese, Fred Stratman is next. I know he's already submitted numerous comments, but if you want to turn him on, we'll hear if he's got anything to add.
We on? Can you hear me? It's Francie Stratman.
Francie, I do. Is there anything that
Yes.
is different from what you've already stated?
Yep. Because I also applaud Cindy for her information, because that's information that I don't feel the residents have had. So I would ask that the supervisors wait on any decision until the residents can state their case, and that we need more time to hear more about these concessions that have been given, especially regarding the riparian buffers and the how the tree ordinance, which will hopefully get passed if that he'll be held to that, and how that would be supervised and met. And also, we have great concerns about the steep slopes. We live abutting this land, and on another side of us, just recently, the steep slope piece was really abused, unbeknownst to this township, because the township was not following and supervising it. And so a lot of damage got done, and then nothing could be done except a little hand slapping. And we have great concerns about the steep slope piece, and that just seems like such an incredible giveaway. And you say that this isn't a development plan, but those concessions are about development, and if they can't be taken back, you're given in carte blanche, as Cindy said. And we have real concerns about that.
Ma'am, I think you need to understand the judge has made these decisions. The township did not make these decisions. Rich, can you explain this again? Because I think everybody's missing the point. This is a proposed agreement from the judge. This is not, we denied the application originally. This is what the judge came back as a settlement.
So
We did not agree to anything.
I understand that the homeowners group has a lawyer that represents them. Who represented us, the whole township, to the judge about this?
There is no representation of the township. We've already denied the applicant's petition for a road. He made an application, it was heard, there was numerous public meetings, and the township ultimately denied that road. Okay?
The original road. But doesn't the township have the ability to go back and have a comment about these codes that are going to be the relief codes? Doesn't the township have any say?
We could certainly say, no, we're going to deny this petition, and then we're going to end up with a road where we don't want it. I think there's this misconception that somehow the road doesn't align perfectly with Stony Brook, that the traffic is not going to be there. The traffic is going to be there whether the line aligns with Stony Brook or not. People are still going to use it as a cut through. The question
I'm talking about the traffic now.
right turn. If you want to talk over me, I'll wait then. Go ahead. You go.
Okay, thank you. I'm not talking about the traffic. I'm talking about the steep slopes, the riparian buffers, and the trees. And what as the township, or what is your stand, our supervisors stand on those pieces?
if our choice is to approve or deny this application or this agreement, there's no further negotiation that the applicant or the court will permit. It's not a matter of going back and renegotiating the agreement. It's either take it or leave it. That's the choice we are faced with. If we leave it, we are under the belief and the advice of both of our counsel that suggests that the applicant will probably prevail in his court proceeding, and we will end up with a road where we don't want it. That's what we're faced with. We're not here to discuss the finer points of the agreement because we didn't negotiate it. It's a court document. So we feel that or at least some of us feel that the placement of the road is a better. It's an issue with safety, and we'd rather have the road somewhere where we want it, where we can better address the safety concerns, than to be forced having a road where we don't want it. So that's what we're faced with. It's not a matter of going back and renegotiating a different thing, unless the applicant chimes in and says, "Oh yeah, I'll consider some changes to the agreement," and the court agrees with those changes. We're stuck with the agreement that we have here right now. So it's either a choice of denying it or approving it. If we deny it, we're pretty sure that the road's going to end up somewhere where we don't want it, much to the chagrin of the other residents that have already filed a petition to have it not where we don't want it. So that's the choices we're faced with here.
Has anybody approached Mr. Debutant about the riparian buffers and the steep slope and asked him?
Debutant, as the applicant, is intimately involved with the negotiations. This is what he stated is the most that he will give up. He's not going to negotiate anything else with the court anymore.
Incredible, he's done it again. He's pulled one on the township. I'm very disappointed.
Well, then you should let him know that.
I have, believe me, I have. For 100 years, our family has been on this land next to it. And so I have a long time history with him, and I don't trust him for a second. And I hope the township will be honest on this and really keep a watch on him.
Thank you, Mr. Stroud.
And that's why we denied the application. That's why we voted against it.
Can I just make a point of clarification real quick, because Mrs. Stratman brought it up, and I know that other people in their public comments said it too, and I just want to eliminate the public comment on it just moving forward. In regards to the tree ordinance that we hopefully will be approving, if not tonight, then in 2 weeks, that tree ordinance does not retroactively come into place for this settlement agreement or any other applications that are pending before the township. Underneath the municipality's planning code, which is the set of laws that govern how land development and zoning come to play, there's a section in there, 508, called vesting. So anything that gets filed with the township, those ordinances on the books at the time that the application is submitted or litigation is pending from a denial or acceptance of an application, only those ordinances which are on the books and in effect the time of that filing govern that project moving forward. So we could approve this tree ordinance tonight, and we could, and I'm just throwing this out there as hypothetical, hypothetically approve this settlement agreement tonight. He would not be bound by the tree ordinance because through the vesting rights of the NPC, that is a retroactive law that is prohibited from coming into place. So I just wanted to make that clear as just a point of clarification.
Right, under the NPC, he was vested 4 years ago when he filed his application.
Exactly.
So, thank you, Mrs. Strathman. I'd like to move on. Mr. Neese, next on the list is Ashi Bhan. I know we've got a number of comments from Mr. Bhan, but with due caution, I will we'll hear from him.
Sure. Thank you, Chairman Nawn. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. It's Ashi Bhan at 4 Springton Point Drive. I'm the Homeowners Association president of Springton Point Residents Association, which is different than Springton Point Estates. We're on the other side of Gradyville Road, if that's clear. I'd like to just point out that, Chairman Nawn, you said that this is not a land development approval?
That's correct.
Right. On the agenda, 15, it says land development approval. And then 15.2, it gets into this proposed agreement.
The agenda is written wrong.
Okay, so
That he has no development rights whether or not the court approves this. If the court approves it, if we vote it, the court approves this settlement agreement, it doesn't give him any rights to develop any land.
Great. So for the
township and get a land development, file a land development application, just like any other developer would.
okay, so for the record, could we switch the title there on the agenda? Would that be
Well, it'll be noted in the minutes and the meeting is recorded, so.
okay? Terrific. I'd like to just point out, our development is very much concerned about the traffic on Gradyville Road. And it's not just a nuisance for us. We have members of the fire department who live in our development. We have several surgeons that need to get where they're going quickly, and they've submitted comment. And so it is a big issue for us. If you look on the under the public comment, I just want to point this out. The second down, bond letter, Newtown Township letter, post HOA meeting. I don't know if you can open that up, but we actually submitted this to you back in October.
Yes, we are familiar. We have read it. Yes.
Great, terrific. Who conducted the traffic study back in 2017?
The developer's traffic engineer at the time.
The developer's engineer conducted.
And it was reviewed by our engineer. In fact, we had, I believe at the time, we had a special engineer come in and review it also.
We did. Okay, well, we would love to see a copy of that. I don't know.
Public record. I suppose we could dig it up if. Now I understand we're in a COVID world now, but I know that could be had if anybody wanted to get it from the township. It's available.
Terrific, and you know things do change also after 3 years. So maybe a new traffic study might be in order.
And that's something that we could certainly request as part of a land development process. It's not something that we can request as part of this particular process, though.
Okay. Well, the last comment.
Let me address one other point you made, and it's interesting. You said you're concerned about the traffic on Gradyville Road. If we have two T intersections on Gradyville Road, one at Cherry Blossom Lane, the proposed Cherry Blossom Lane and Gradyville Road, and one at Stony Brook and Gradyville Road as it exists now, for traffic to get between, if you're driving on Stony Brook and you want to get on Cherry Blossom, you're going to have to drive on Gradyville Road and vice versa. So by having two T intersections, we're actually increasing the amount of traffic on Gradyville Road. If those two roads, Cherry Blossom and Stony Brook, lined up as per this proposed settlement agreement, that would actually reduce the amount of traffic on Gradyville Road. So if your goal is a concern about Gradyville Road and a reduction of traffic on Gradyville Road, then one would have to argue that this settlement agreement meets that goal. To have two separate intersections would actually increase traffic on Gradyville Road.
Well, you have a cut through going on.
Which you'll have depending whether or
You
not
can still.
Sure, you can cut through, but trust me, when 252 backs up, people start heading to Gradyville Road. And if they're trying to get around, and for a while there, and I think Mr. Neese knows this, the light there at Gradyville Road and Newtown Street Road was not timed properly. So you would get a big backup there. In fact, you still do, all the way to the shopping center, all the way past the shopping center, past Troop Farm Road. So if you're trying to get around that, you'll go through the estates, you'll go through Troop Farm Road, and you'll go around. And we've seen it happen. I mean, there's a reason so many of our residents have objected to this. They all know. And our development. Oh, I'm sorry, sir.
I do it all the time.
Okay, our development has one way in and one way out. So in terms of keeping, I can't imagine a judge approving a road in an unsafe position. I applaud you guys.
All right. Again,
for denying.
I don't want to cut you off. We have your comments.
Sure. Thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Neese, we have next somebody identified as Carl.
Whoops.
Nope, not Cindy.
Nope, I did the wrong one. I'm sorry.
Right. Carl, could you please identify yourself, name and address, please?
Yes, Carl Dermengen, 26 Springton Point Drive.
All right, you're going to have to speak up or turn your volume up. We can barely hear you.
It's Carl Dermengen at 26 Springton Point Drive.
Did you already submit comments?
Yes, I actually had a question.
Well, you can pose it. Can't guarantee we'll answer it, but go ahead.
Is it possible for you to represent the citizens in your response? Can you say we don't approve because we believe, like we said before, that we believe it's unsafe, and here are the reasons we thought it was unsafe? Is there a chance that the judge didn't have the proper facts when he made the decision?
Well, we can present whatever we want to the judge, and the judge can choose to believe it or not. It's out of our hands. We're not.
I understand it's out of your hands, and I really do sincerely believe you want to help us. But I think it might be helpful, considering the uproar in this area, if we say no to this, to have the support of the supervisors with attached documents demonstrating why it was denied the first time and further information on why it's unsafe.
Okay.
That might be helpful.
If we deny this.
Hold on, John, real quick. I think that to Carl's point, I think that there's confusion on what was approved, what was rejected and what wasn't rejected. This proposed road that the court has laid out here is a result of the rejection of the prior placement that the applicant submitted for, which was right before the bridge when you get to the curve on Gradyville Road. So the prior board rejected that because they felt, according to their engineer, that it was unsafe for traffic to have that coming into Gradyville Road. Based off of the engineer's suggestion, as well as others who are involved in traffic studies, that is how the second placement got in line with with Stony Brook Boulevard. So just to clarify that, because I think you had the inverse there, Carl.
Mr. Neese, can you put up Exhibit A from the settlement agreement onto the screen?
There's actually a better copy. There's actually a better copy that's attached separately.
Well, that's fine. If you think that's what I'm looking for, then put that up. Whatever. If you think
you can see this. You can see this.
I'm looking at Exhibit A on my lap or my pad right now. So let's see. There you go, right there. Okay. Hopefully everybody who's listening can see Exhibit A. On Exhibit A, if you look toward the right of the screen, okay, you'll see a road, Cherry Blossom Road, that comes out of Marple Township off of Bellflower Lane toward the bottom and works its way up to the intersection there. Now, if you ignore that intersection, that road that takes you up to Stony Brook, if you just continue straight across there to Gradyville Road, that's where the applicant had originally wanted to have the road. And you can see it aligns with the gentleman's driveway there, who is in fact the intervener in the existing agreement. Now, again, we appreciate everyone's comments, but that's not where the township wants the road. And it's not a matter of, oh, well, we go back and say, we're not going to agree to this, and here's why. The court is required to act on the original issue. The original issue is that location of that road. If this agreement can't be reached, then the court will render a decision on that road. Certainly they could deny it and support the township, or more likely than not, according to the advice of our counsel, is the court will probably rule in the developer's favor, and that's where the road will go. So this isn't a matter of we're going to keep negotiating this back and forth. This is what we have before us. Okay, the township feels that that's not an appropriate location for a connection to Gradyville Road, that's going to create a traffic issue both there and at Stony Brook, and a better solution may be to have that road line up with Stony Brook Boulevard. Okay, so I appreciate everyone that wants us to go back and say, oh, well, the residents don't want this. Well, that's fine. If the residents don't want this and we say, no, we're not going to agree to this, then the judge says, fine, it's going to go there where we don't want it, and that's the end of that. So there's not a back and forth like you would in the typical land development process here. We have already had that back and forth. We discussed that over a course of many meetings in 2017 and 2018. eventually with us denying the developer's application. Okay, the developer, under his rights, under the law, appealed that decision to the Court of Common Pleas. There's nothing we can do about that. We've already denied this. We don't want this any more than anyone else does. But what we're stuck with is either to say, okay, well, I guess we're going to take a road where we don't want it. That's going to create traffic problems for us in the future. Or we can try to work out a settlement. And this was the settlement that was presented. This was what the developer is willing to do. This is what the court has presented to us as a settlement. We've negotiated. This isn't like they just handed it to us yesterday. This has been over a long process. This was originally denied by the township in 2018, and here we are in 2020. So this has gone through various iterations of permutations, and it looks way different than what was originally presented to the township. And this is the best that the courts will allow us to have. So that's what we're faced with right now. And I appreciate everyone's comments. We'll continue to hear them for as long as you want to give them. And we've read everyone's comments and appreciate that. And that's fine. So maybe we decide to deny, nope, we can't agree to the settlement agreement. Okay, fine. But then we understand there's still going to be a road and you're still going to have traffic on Stony Brook Boulevard. So it just seems to me that this is the better alignment. And again, I appreciate everybody testifying, or not testifying, but giving me comments about how dangerous it's going to be. And again, I'm not trying to offer any different comments other than to say that, you know, I hope everybody realizes what I do for a living. For instance, if you're a civil engineering student at undergraduate at Widening University, you have to take my course, Highway Design, in order to graduate. So while you offer me comments, I offer you comments too, but let's understand that my comments, I'm actually teaching this stuff. And I can tell you that the alignment as presented in the settlement agreement is a far safer, far better traffic alternative that will more likely than not result in less traffic on Gradyville Road than the other option that was presented to the township back in 2016. That may very well end up being the case anyhow, based on what the court decides. So again, I'm happy to continue to hear all the comments, but we're not here to negotiate the finer points of this. So
yeah, and John, let me just say one thing here. I mean, we read every one of those comments.
Yes.
And we've heard the comments. So is there anything different that folks are raising their hand or are going to tell us? Anything additional or different than the significant amount of comments that we've already heard?
Well, Carl's on the line right now. Carl, do you have anything else further at this point?
No, I was just asking for your advisement on how we could work together to do something else to avoid this. That's all. If there's nothing, I understand.
Unfortunately, the developers forced us into a corner where there's not much else we can do at this point. And that's really what we're trying to do, is just work out the best solution. So I appreciate your comments.
I appreciate you listening.
Thank you very much. Steve, we have Larry Fisher. Always happy to hear from Larry. He always has something good to say. So don't disappoint me, Larry.
Am I on now?
You are on, Larry.
Okay. I attended all the hearings for the original road. And it's my recollection that part of the discussion at that time was the board's concern for not knowing how Mr. DeBoton was going to develop his land. It seems to me he's getting what he wants. I understand the safety factor of the road, but if the road goes in as he originally requested, there's a very light traffic because there are only 28 houses in his Marple development. And those are the only people who would use this new road. By relocating the road, you are giving him 40-something lots. Right now, if he puts in Cherry Blossom Road, granted, maybe not the safe location, he has no approved lots and a lot of very steep slopes. He's never developed that land in the past because of those very steep slopes. How many developable lots are there if he cannot get the waiver for 50, 60, 70%? I think it's, he's got nothing to lose with this. He will be able to develop, if it's not 47 lots, it will be 37 lots. but if he builds Cherry Blossom as he originally requested, maybe it's not as safe, and maybe it won't get approved, because then it goes back into court, and maybe the residents can go appear before that judge. He has nothing approved, and he has a lot of land with very steep slopes that maybe he can only get 10 lots out of that, and the traffic would then be a total of 38 lots. But right now, if Cherry Blossom is approved as he originally requests, 28 lots is the maximum number of residents that could conceivably want to get out of their development by not going on Media Line Road. I think you haven't discussed that at all. If you put it in, and maybe it's not as safe as you'd like to be, but it does have the sight lines, and he has no approved lots whatsoever, and he has to go through the total land development process with no waivers to start with. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Just a point of clarification, certainly the only thing that was granted to him in the application that we denied was the Cherry Blossom Lane connection to Gradyville Road and the creation of 2 lots, one on either side of Cherry Blossom Lane. That doesn't preclude him from coming back before the township with a land development plan to further subdivide those lots and create something there. And yet, while yes, by right, he's limited to 30 some odd lots, doesn't mean he can't use some of the cluster provisions that are allowed within that zone to create even double or triple the number of those lots in a clustered format. So to say that he's only going to have the 28 cars for Marple Township isn't really true. And again, understand that this plan, this agreement, does not give him the ability to develop these lots. He still has to come into the township for a land development application. But I do appreciate your comments. Thank you. Mr. Neese, we have one remaining K or C. Kresge, if you could allow them to speak, if they could identify themselves with their name and address, that'd be great.
Oh, hi, this is Carrie Kresge, 10 Stony Brook Boulevard. I know it's late and I appreciate everyone's time. And I understand a little bit more about the situation, and I think the comments from Mr. Fisher and Cindy Mahala have been very helpful. I'm not 100% sure why any road has to connect to Gradyville, and maybe I missed that in the original discussion. I understand the whole thing with Marple said, you can't get your deal unless Newtown approves, but as residents of Newtown, it seems like we all don't want this, regardless of where the road actually goes. Is there any way to just refuse the road?
We did that. We denied his application for the road. So as far as we're concerned, no road exists. He appealed that decision to the Court of Common Pleas. So
I apologize.
Now they can either grant him his, overturn our decision, or grant the settlement plan that we're trying to work on. That's the choices. They're not going to. I suppose they could say, "Yep, we agree with the township. You get no road," but that seems highly unlikely, both in my experience and the advice of both of our legal counsel that say that that's probably not going to be the case.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you guys gave the alternative road to hook into Stony Brook, which
no,
I am.
That's the settlement. That's the court.
Understand.
Settlement, right?
So it seems that most people are against the settlement. I mean, from what I was listening to, in terms of the slope and all the concessions that were made to him, and also in terms of the actual road coming through. In the future, is it possible to deny him development, or is that not an option?
Anything's possible. Whether again, there's nothing that precludes her from going to Commonwealth Court and challenging any decision that this board may offer under the settlement agreement that's before us. He has to come back in for land development. Again, there are many aspects of that he still has to comply with, and that would be subject to our standard land development process, which, based on the commentary, I think would take many, many months, if not years, for him to get approved. If he doesn't like the answers, he can certainly appeal to the Commonwealth Court. If they overturn the township's decision and allow him to connect Cherry Blossom Lane, one would imagine that he's coming back into the township to further subdivide those 2 parcels, at which time we can again argue all this all over again as far as steep slopes and repairing buffers and things like that. And again, it's subject to, if we deny it, he can take it to Commonwealth Court. So, there's no real answer. The only thing we know at this point is, in all likelihood, there's going to be a road connecting from the Marple development to Gradyville Road, and we're just trying to find the best location for that.
Another way of answering that, and it's Miss Kresge, right? Is that how you say your last name?
Correct.
Correct. So to answer the question, could we deny him, moving, if we say no to this proposed settlement agreement from the court, could we also deny him, land development and zoning moving forward? There are property owner rights. So unfortunately, what you get into is these situations where a landowner wants to come in, they have the rights, based on various zoning ordinances and different laws that they can come in and develop their land. If a township arbitrarily denies them that ability to develop the land in accordance with whatever relief that they get, and or in the parameters of the zoning ordinances, then they get to take that to court. And 9 times out of 10, or I would actually say most likely 100% of the time, the township is going to lose that court battle. In addition to that litigation aspect to it, if you unilaterally say to an applicant, no, you can't come in here and design A, B, and C, under the MPC, they, again, in addition to the law, have property owner rights. And so you're getting something that you most likely wouldn't want because you're not open up to that land development process to have those negotiations.
The laws in Pennsylvania, in my 35 years of experience, overwhelmingly favor the property owner. And in this case, that is the developer. And that's always the way it is. So that's what we're up against. Thank you, Mrs. Kresge. Mr. Neese? Oh, nope. No more hands? Oh, I do.
No, we have, Mr. Chairman, we have 2.
John, can we just table this and let them go and see what happens with the intervening petition? Because we're going to hear, this is never going to happen. Right? I don't want to continue to talk about this because we're not going to make, there's going to be some people that are going to be happy and some people that aren't. I say we let it go to the court and see if they intervene.
I'd rather complete the public comment that's left, and then we can vote to table. That's what we want to do.
Yeah, but we keep getting more as we go into
really
more and more discussion. There's more and more comments. So, I mean, we're just going to generate more. Yeah, I mean, I want to hear something different than what's already been said. I mean, we've got a tremendous amount of input. Is there something different than what we've already said?
I'd rather table it and let them go to try to intervene and see what happens there, and then take this up in 2 weeks, because that way at least they've had their opportunity with their attorney to try to intervene, because we denied the application and everybody's just getting madder and madder about this. And the bottom line is we denied the application. Okay. And I think we've been on talking about this now for a while. We can't change what happened with the judge. Maybe they can by intervening, maybe they can't, but at least let them have the opportunity, and then we can take this up in 2 weeks. That's my opinion.
I second that.
Well, I don't disagree, but I got one hand I'm showing raised. I'd rather not cut that gentleman off. At least let me.
Is that the last comment, John?
I would like this to be the last comment, John.
You have 2.
What's the other one, Mr. Neese?
Is it somebody who spoke before? The other
No,
comment?
it's not. It's
a letter in.
Somebody who spoke before.
Yeah, we can't continue like this, John. We could be here all night.
Over each other. Stop. I got Mr. Sasso here, who, as far as I know, did not submit comments. Why don't we see if at least turn him on and let me ask him a couple questions, Mr. Neese. Hello, Mr. Sasso. There you are. Mr. Sasso, can you identify yourself and state your address for the record, please?
Hi, address is 8 Maplewood Drive.
I
just have a question. I'm sorry to take up so much of your time.
Stop. You need to speak up or turn up your volume. We can barely hear you.
Can you hear me?
That's much better.
I said I live at 8 Maplewood Drive. Terribly sorry to take up so much of your time. I just have a question. Mr. Nawn, you keep mentioning advice of counsel. Who is that counsel? What is
our township solicitor, Mr. Catania, and our special counsel, Mr. Sikora.
That's S-I-K-O-R-A?
Rich, how do you spell your name?
S-O-K-O-R-A-I.
Okay. And they're both township employees?
No. Neither of them are township employees. They're both retained, hired by the township, appointed at our reorganization meeting this January. Mr. Catania serves as our township solicitor. He is our township legal counsel. Mr. Sikora serves as our special counsel in certain land development matters.
And what's the name of your firm, Mr. Sikora? Or is that on the website?
Well, I don't know if it's on the township website. It's on my website. Hi, H-I-G-H, Swartz, S-W-A-R-T-Z.
Thank you.
Mr. Neese, are there any more?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Patty Wilson has raised her hand several times. She sent an email.
I mean, John, I really don't want to talk about this anymore because I'd like to let them have their opportunity to try to intervene. That's what they asked for. I think we should let them do it. And I don't think we should talk about it anymore because we're saying the same thing over and over and over again.
Damn.
And we can't solve this problem tonight. We could talk about this till cows come home.
Okay, that's fine.
That's my opinion. I mean, I'm not trying to be rude to anybody, but we have some residents that don't want the road one place and the other ones want it this place. And the one person's already had the opportunity to intervene. Now we'll let these people go and try to intervene. They've hired an attorney. Let's let them try to have their opportunity to do that. I mean,
I have no problem.
That's the fairest thing we can be. We can't be any fairer than that. We already denied the application.
You're absolutely right, Mr. Russo. We've done everything.
I mean, there's nothing else we can do. We said no. If the judge rules against us, we can't help that. You know how you resolve that? You vote the judge out of office when he comes up for re-election. I'm not trying to be rude, but this is crazy.
I agree.
Let them try to intervene. That's what they asked for. We're going to give them the opportunity to try to intervene. That's what I would like to do. That's my motion.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and
Hold on, I
seconded.
have a question real quick, and because I don't want to see us get into an issue if we unilaterally shut off. If Rich and Joe think it's fine that we can shut off the public comment now, then I have no problem with moving forward with this. But I don't want it to then be thrown back in our face at the court that we didn't listen, that we didn't provide an appropriate forum for people to provide the public comment. And again,
well, I think we've done more than that, Len. Len, I think we've done more than that.
Listen, I'm not listening to any of my colleagues on that. I asked for counsel to weigh in on that.
I think if you're going to table this, you can stop the discussion on what is already before the board. If you're going to move to table it, it's a separate motion.
All right, here's what I'm going to do, Leonard. If you don't want to table it, then you continue to talk about this, then I'm going to vote the other way. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. I'm giving these people an opportunity to intervene.
With all due respect,
there's
I don't
no
know
more
what that
time to
means.
talk about it. We don't have to continue to talk about it. They want to have their opportunity to intervene. Let them have their opportunity to intervene. I mean, it's black and white.
It wouldn't be because you're not ruling on this. You have to give everybody the fair opportunity to talk, and before you rule on it. But if you're not ruling on it and continuing it, you can postpone the remainder of the public comment if there's any.
You can continue the public comment.
All right. I'm going to break. I want to make a proposal that we cut off public comment by 9:40. That is done in every other municipality in the state of Pennsylvania, and I do this for a living. So I want the public comment cut off at 9:40 because we're going to hear the same thing. If we give them their opportunity to intervene, that's what they're asking us for. That's what every resident sent the petition. They don't want this road. They're going to have their attorney go and try to intervene and and tell the judge their reasons and here's why. And I think that's what we should let them do. I think
everybody's had an opportunity to raise their hand and ask the question. I think there's one more. Why don't we take the one and everybody else has been heard from? Take the last one.
That's what I was trying to get to. If we take the last comment.
But we've done that 3 times.
No, but this is the last comment. We say we're ruling that this is the last comment. We've heard from everyone else.
With all due respect, there's a motion and a second on the floor right now.
Yep.
All right.
Thanks, Joe.
Got to be done.
If we continue the public comment, we can do this all again at another meeting with the same amount of public comment. If we accepted the last public comment and then close the public comment, then at the next meeting, all we got to do is discuss the agreement or not. That was my point. And again, I wanted to make sure, consistent with Rich's point, that we weren't cutting any residents off. But as Joe has pointed out, there's been a motion made and seconded to table discussion or table table the discussion and
to defer,
the consideration of this to the next meeting. So all those in favor of the motion to table this for this evening and bring it up again at the next meeting, I guess please signify by saying aye.
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 Mr. Neese, can we do a roll call on this?
Wait, can I ask a question? Is this to table it to the next meeting, or is it to table it until the judge rules about the intervening?
Well, that's what I thought we were
What's
doing.
the-
They thought that's what the residents asked for. And
Right.
we've heard from numerous people, and everybody's saying the same thing, and everybody's getting more and more upset. And my point is let them have their opportunity to intervene. If the judge allows them to intervene, great. If he doesn't, then they know who the problem is. We already denied the application. The judge has come back and said, I want this to be the settlement judge. Okay, so we can't do anything with that. Either we accept it or we don't. But at least we give them the opportunity, in my opinion, to have their say with their attorney to go and try to intervene, to show them their side of the situation and why they don't want this where it is. And I think that's the only fair thing to do at this point, because we're sort of like at the 5-yard line, and now they're trying to get in the game. So I think that's the fairest thing we can do to help them get what they want. I don't see any other way we could listen to everybody else all night long. We could listen to everybody in Newtown Square, and I don't think we're going to hear anything different. They want their opportunity to intervene, and I think it's fair to let them try to do that. And that's why I said let's let them have their opportunity. That's all I'm trying to say.
No, I understand that, Mike. I understand. But what if
same thing over
no,
and
I just
over
don't
again.
want to table this to 2 weeks and then we find that that they didn't get a chance to see the judge, or the judge didn't make a ruling about intervening. I just want it to be clear about what we're voting on. That's all.
Until the judge rules on it, I think is what you're saying, Tina.
Well, I think
right?
that's what's fair.
Yeah, so I'll second that. If that's what you're doing, Mike, I'll second
I'm
that
just trying to
until
give
the
them the
judge rules.
opportunity to intervene.
Mr.
That's
Russo,
all
what
I'm
was your motion?
My motion is to table this to let them have the opportunity to intervene with their attorney for the homeowners and whoever the other, I don't know who all the names are
All right,
of the intervening party.
Tabling this, hang on, you're tabling this until the judge rules on the intervener's petition, correct?
Well, I think that's what they've asked us to do, and that's
Well,
what I
is
think is
that
fair.
your motion? Yes.
That's what I would like to do.
Okay.
Second.
And you seconded that, right?
Yep.
Okay, so the motion to table this.
You don't need to
until the
technically
judge-
vote on it.
The motion, what's this?
You technically don't need to vote on it now. Once a motion's been
Well,
made.
it's not really just tabling it. I mean, Mike stated some provisions that we're deferring it. We're, until certain things happen. So I think we do need to vote. And I'll ask the
all this is
opinion of
getting
Joe. Joe,
complicated. We're
you?
going to have one last person do public comment, and then no one's disagreeing that they should have the right to intervene in this. But what we're doing is we are prolonging this process, the public comment portion of this, by not just ending it, putting a timeline on it today, allowing these residents to close this one chapter, and then having the court rule on the petition and intervene. I don't think any of us, out of the 5 of us, disagree that these residents deserve to have their day in court, and the judge will rule on that intervention. No one's disagreeing with that. But what I'm disagreeing with is the process in which we're going. It's a technical route, I get that, but we're just opening up a longer, we want to get this resolved, and by going this way, we're not resolving it any quicker.
Thank you, Mr. Altieri. That's kind of my point. I guess ideally I'd like to finish the public
Well,
comment.
if we'll limit it to one more comment, I'm fine, but I'm not going to sit here and listen for another 3 hours to the same comments over and over again. And
Last comment,
and I'm
right,
not
last
doing
comment, and then we vote on it. Last comment, and
That's
then we
fine.
vote
I'm
on
okay
it.
with that. I'll withdraw my motion if that's what we're doing.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want the board to be under the misconception that the next time this is heard that there won't be public comment. You can't receive public comment.
We can make a motion to close public comment, correct, Mr. Catania?
Yes, you can. And if there's any change in the agreement as a result of the intervention, then we'd have to start all over again.
Understood, but if there's no change in the agreement as a result of the agreement, we don't have to then open up public comment again, correct?
Correct. You've had it presented publicly and you've heard public comment.
So why don't let's get all the public comment out. We'll make a motion to close public comment, and then we'll make a motion to table. That's what the board wants to do. I think that's the process that we need to do right now to at least then move this on. Does everybody agree?
Yeah, and I think it's any comment that someone hasn't made already.
Right.
Well, true. I mean, I'm not
Right.
opening up the floodgates again. I'll encourage anybody who's listening that we have your comments. You've already written them down. You've provided them. So I guess we'll go back to see, are there any hands up? Mr. had mentioned that Mrs. Wilson was trying to get in, but I don't see her hand up. Is she?
You told me to unmute myself.
Yeah, I just unmuted you.
Okay, go ahead, Mrs. Wilson. Do you have anything new to add?
Yes, Patty Wilson, 4111 Battles Lane. I listened to all of the hearings in the past, and my understanding of this particular development when first presented was not that Marple required that there be an entrance into Newtown Township. In fact, he got his proposal without that requirement for a road through Newtown. He just wanted that road, and they thought it would be a good idea, and he thought it was a good idea. I think everybody knows, even looking at what Mr. DeBaton has already done on Media Line, and there's no data out there, that we don't know whether he's just pushing dirt around and coming back with something else, or he's actually going to build something, because there's no way to figure out what it is he's deciding to do. In the case of this particular access, at no time during those hearings was any mention made that this could possibly be the alternative route. Because it's certainly what I would believe is at that time that not only would Mr. and Mrs. Roner have become parties to this particular application, but certainly the folks in Springton Point Estates and maybe Springton Point would. So they had no opportunity to be parties because they had no idea you were proposing this. So I would certainly urge you in the future, where you're going to affect a particular neighborhood or a number of residents, that you notify them before it gets into a settlement agreement. My last thing is, I have never been involved in any litigation where the judge has unilaterally presented a settlement agreement. It's always been my experience, and I'm surprised to hear that this was a settlement agreement that the judge proposed. It's more likely that this is, I believe, something the attorney for Mr. DeBaton proposed, and for whatever reason, we determined not to negotiate further. And I agree with Mrs. Mahalo, I agree with Mr. Fisher. This is too big of a giveaway, and I'm going to continue to urge you to deny this. He doesn't even need a road at all here, and I think it can be argued successfully that he not get this road. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. Is there any other public comment?
What? Had you sent it to me? Okay, hold on a second. Sorry. I don't see it. Hold on one second, please. I do not see it. Now I'm in there. We do have one more that was sent to us via email. It's Mr. Anthony and Judy Liacana. And it starts off that they opposed Fort Joy roadway. This decision is bad and not.
Give me their address first.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's 2 Hempstead Road.
Okay, go ahead.
This decision is bad and is not in the best interest of the Newtown Township community due to the safety concerns and traffic congestion issues. An original owner at the Springton Point Estates for over 20 years, we've witnessed Gradyville Road as increasing danger exit for our community of drivers. To be specific, Gradyville Road is higher speed roadway, 45 to 60, and a new intersection at Stony Brook Drive into Fort Joy community is extremely dangerous decision for the board to approve and consider. The placement of this road at this location will eventually require stoplight due to the high speed of traffic, volume of cars, trucks, and the lack of safety for the exiting, for existing stop sign. The developer of this project has a long history of taking advantage of our township and our board and the taxpaying community. this project and the roadway is yet another example of our elected board not addressing the integrity, safety concerns, and personal property of its taxpaying community.
Unbelievable. Even though we've denied the application, somehow this is still our fault. I don't know what else we can do. So we've denied it, but that's still not good enough. I guess we'll just shoot the developer next time it comes in. I don't know what else to do. Okay. You know what? Well, okay. Well, Mr. Neese, do you see any more public comment listed there?
I want to call the question.
Wait, hold on. There's no question to call right now. Mr. Neese, do you see any more public comment listed there?
I do not.
I do not either. I'd like to offer a motion that we close public comment on this settlement agreement and choose not to reopen it unless the settlement agreement somehow changes.
Second.
Third.
Seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Would anybody, I'd like to just make a motion that we table this then until such time as the court has ruled on the intervener's petition.
You're voting on Mike's motion now.
Yeah, that he withdrew. That, yes, I'm bringing you back up again.
Did you withdraw it, Mike?
Yeah, because we had to listen to the other folks.
Yes.
Okay, so you're putting it back on the table, the same motion, John?
Well, yes, I'm putting on the table.
I'm going to second it.
I'm going to say, yeah, okay.
Okay, Mike seconded it. So, all right. All those in favor of tabling this further discussions on this item until such time as the court has ruled on the intervener's petition, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Any further? No, we're done with this item. All right. Moving on. Item 16.1, consider approving ordinance 2020-02, the tree ordinance. We've all had a copy or a chance to review the tree ordinance. It's been published and it is available for comment. Mr. Neese, have we received any written comment on the tree ordinance?
I don't believe we've received anything that you haven't already heard.
Okay.
What I read into the record earlier tonight.
What's the board's pleasure on the tree ordinance?
I think so. I mean, in terms of, sorry, let me back this up real quick. So I am ready to, I'm ready to approve this. I don't think that, I mean, we had council look at this. I looked at it. The EAC has provided, their inputs. Joe has worked with the EAC in, addressing the issues that we originally had. And I think that from Joe's summary that he provided, from a legal standpoint, everything is now ironed out in terms of the issues that we originally raised before. So
is that a motion?
I will make a motion to consider approving the 2020-02 tree ordinance.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Partridge to approve our ordinance 2020-02 tree ordinance. Any further questions, discussions from members of the board on this item? All those in favor of approving the tree ordinance as written, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Wow, that was easy. All right, new business, 17.1, consider adopting the 2019 audit. We already did that. Number 2, 17.2, consider accepting the tax exempt bonds and financing certain capital projects for the Dunwoody community from Delaware County Industrial Authority. Mr. Neese, can you shed some light on this for us?
My understanding, first of all, this request has come in from Dunwoody, and my understanding, we've had it reviewed by Joe, our solicitor, for what they were requesting. The board is required to take action just supporting this. Basically, it does not put the township at any risk, but it is a requirement for them to get the bonds for Dunwoody through the Industrial Authority.
So move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve item 17.2, the taxes and bonds financing certain capital projects from Dunwoody through the Delaware County Industrial Authority. As I understand it, this does not encumber any funds on behalf of the township, doesn't affect our bond rating, really has nothing to do with us. It's a requirement of the Delaware County Industrial Authority that we accept the tax exempt bonds, right? Okay.
So there's no liability on us either, Steve? Steve?
I'm sorry, I'm getting two things at me at once. You're asking me if there's any liability on the township side?
Yeah, like we're not incurring any liability in addition to us not having any issues with our bond market.
That is my understanding, that this is strictly a debt between them and the having to look again at it, the industrial authority. Joe, you've reviewed this, right?
Yeah, it's just a requirement of the statute that one municipal corporation, could be the county, it could be the township. In the past, they've used the county. They could use the township if they want, but it's just a requirement. It has no effect on us financially, but it's just a requirement of the statute.
Got it. Thanks, Joe.
All right, motion was made and seconded to approve this item. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Chairman.
17.3 is consider authorizing Public Works staff to take the lead on the winter road salt bid on behalf of 10 Delaware County municipalities.
So move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve item 17.3. Mr. Neese, just as a clarification, this is the same thing we've done over the past couple of years. We take the lead and we've negotiated some outstanding rates for salt, if I remember correctly.
We go out to bid. It's through the public bid process. Yes.
Okay. Motion was made and seconded. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 17.4, consider approving the purchase of a new fire truck.
Mr. Chairman, I would just make note that after the request from the public last time to look at grants, and I think it was kind of supported by the board that we would do that, we did go out and look. There are no grants available at this time for the purchase of a fire truck. And where the grant dollars have been available is for the funding of some buildings and the facilities and things like that. The fire company, by my understanding, did try to apply for that grant and were unable to get it.
Okay.
And I think they had to do something with timing.
Quick question for Steve.
Yep.
Steve, obviously, the next item is the financing of that fire truck. Question about the financing. What was the annual debt cost per year? You gave that last meeting.
I believe that both of them are attached. If I can pull it up.
Yeah.
One would be 160 roughly, and the other would be 115 in that range, 115, 116. If you can see what I pulled up on the screen.
Yeah, 115, 116. Okay.
And so the 7 years, the 7-year debt is about 160,000. The 10-year debt's 115,000.
Okay. Thanks, Steve.
What's the board's pleasure on this item?
John, regarding the financing, I'm looking at the lower payment, longer debt, longer term. Especially with I think we have some struggles, financially, maybe this year and over coming years. At the same time, we've heard the reasons why we have to do this. I mean, we have to have a working fire apparatus, and so we don't, in my opinion, we don't have too much of a choice. But when we finance it, I'd prefer to take the lower payment, looking at our overall potential budget struggles this year. That's just my thoughts.
I agree with you, Ed. I agree that we, not to stretch it out because we don't know what the future is going to bring as far as our revenues. So I agree that it should be the lower amount over a longer period of time, even though it costs us more in the long run, but for budgeting purposes.
We could certainly make a motion to purchase the fire truck and, you know, say to use the longer rate, you know, the longer purchase period, I guess we'll call it.
Mr. Chairman, if I may real quick, the fire company has met with the company who's producing it, the truck that's on the line right now. There are a couple challenges with, they've offered to do, if we were to do this loan, pay within 30 days, they will build the truck precisely to the company's desire and actually will save us about $40,000.
I'm all for that.
The only difference.
You're saying pay for it up front, not to finance it. Take it out of it. Is that what you're saying?
No, we would do the financing still.
Okay.
But give them a payment in 30 days or less.
But we just pay them within 30 days. We would save 40,000. And the only difference is it just means that it would not be delivered until early part of next year.
Yeah.
And if you know anything about fire trucks, that's not
a long time.
That's not a long time at all.
It's custom made.
Mr. Neese, do you have any problem if we vote to approve this and use the 10-year borrowing rate as opposed to the 7-year borrowing rate?
I do not. I think that in light of where we are financially of unknowns, it's probably wise.
Would anybody like to offer a motion on this item?
Yeah, I mean, I'll offer that motion to approve the purchase of a new fire truck, financing for 10 years at annual cost, whatever the rate was Steve had up on the screen. I believe it's 115 something and change. And also to issue the initial payment within 30 days to be able to realize the $40,000 discount.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve the purchase of a fire truck as stated by Mr. Partridge. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Fantastic. At least you did something good tonight. 17.5, consider approving the advertising of the ordinance to finance the purchase of the fire truck through the Delaware Valley Regional Finance Authority at a fixed rate to be locked at the time of the passing of the ordinance. And we're doing that for a rate of borrowing for 10 years.
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve advertising the ordinance to finance it through the Delaware Valley Regional Finance Authority. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We have nothing listed under old business.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm sorry, if I can, one thing that could have put under my report, but I failed to, it is related to old business. It's the strategic plan schedule that we've been talking about. If I can, based on this group's desire to do it in the evenings, I've met with a couple of the strategic plan members committee. They suggested that we look at July 8, July 15, July 20, July 22, and July 27, with the July 29th if needed. So it would be the first three, well, the second, third, and fourth Wednesdays, and the third and fourth Mondays.
You'll send us an email on that?
I will. If you're all good with those, I'll send it out and get it started.
Yeah. So Steve, you and I had some discussion, and I mean, of those 5 dates, I mean, there's definitely 2 of them where I'm away and I can't do. I can make the other 3. I think we talked about this and potentially conflicting with board members, you know, summer schedules, vacations, whatever. But I guess as long as we can get a majority of the board to each of those meetings, I think you know, in our discussion that would be definitely what's desired, right? To as long as we can maintain a majority of the board to move forward with that schedule.
I mean, obviously, I would love it if everybody can be there, but I mean, at any point, we could have a board member not be able to show up to something. So, you know, you know, I'm trying to get it done as quickly as possible so that we can use the decisions from here to help us guide the budgeting process for the year, but I'll do whatever the board desires.
And you said 8, 15, 20, 22, and 27?
Yes.
Now, are these in person or are these Zoom?
They'll be virtual Zoom meetings.
Oh, okay.
Yep, I'm fine.
Well, unfortunately, I can make all those dates, so.
No July vacation, son.
Everybody good with this?
Yep.
All right, good.
Okay, thank you.
All right, item 19.1, this is under resolutions legislative. This is consider approving a resolution 2020-24 approving Delaware County Industrial Development's issuance of revenue bonds or notes up to $70 million. The Dunwoody Village, the township does not incur any debt, obligation, or liability with respect to the IDA's issuance of these bonds or notes. Is there a resolution to read? I don't.
Yeah.
You got it, Mr.
I have it, John. Okay, resolution number 2020-24, resolution of the Township of Newtown in the County of Delaware, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, approving in accordance with Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended, a plan of financing of the Delaware County Industrial Development Authority. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Supervisors of the Township of Newtown that Section 1, the Board of Supervisors of the Township of Newtown pursuant to Section 147F of the Code hereby approves the issuance by the authority of the bonds in an aggregate principal amount exclusive of any original issue discount or premium up to $70 million to finance and refinance the project. The bonds shall not be in any way a debt or liability of the Township of Newtown or Delaware County, and the Township of Newtown or Delaware County shall not have any obligation with respect to the payment of the principal or redemption price of or interest on the bonds. Section 2, the officers and agents of the Township of Newtown are hereby authorized to perform all acts and do all things necessary or desirable to be performed or done on the part of the Township of Newtown to effect the purpose of this resolution. Section 3, all resolutions or parts of resolutions inconsistent herewith are hereby repealed. Resolved this 22nd day of June 2020 at a meeting of the Board of Supervisors of the Township of Newtown, Pennsylvania. And that's my motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to approve Resolution 2020-24, approving the Delaware County Industrial Development Authority's issuance of revenue bonds for Dunwoody Village. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We have no additional business listed. Do any board members have any comment? No board
I just
comment.
wanted to say, I just wanted to thank the EAC, specifically Cindy and all them for work, and Harry Bryans for working with Joe on getting this ordinance to where it is, including Bruce Killen, all of them, all the EAC people for that. So they worked on it for a very long time, as we all know, and I was a little frazzled when we went and voted on that, so I forgot to commend them on that when we voted, so thank you.
Well stated, Mr. Altieri. Any other board members have any comments? Seeing none, item 22, public comment. Is there if any members of the general public that are still listening have any comments in general that are not related to any item on the agenda, please raise your hand and we'll get you turned on. Seeing none, we are in adjournment. Our next meeting is Monday, July 13th via Zoom, like this meeting. Wish everybody a happy 4th of July, and we'll see you all on the 13th. Thank you very much for participating. Have a good night.